Ready to start, everybody?
We're ready to go.
All set.
All right, we have from the public, and then we're gonna do the swearing in, right? And Blake, and you'll run that there.
Mr. Mora,
And then,
Mr. Mora, we
go
need to adopt the agenda, please.
okay. And so first, if Eileen can be ready to start the pledge.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second that motion.
All right. Wendy, would you like to call the question?
Yes, please. Mr. Banuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Canetta,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez,
Aye.
Mr. Mora.
Aye. And then if we could start with the pledge. Eileen, will you lead us, please?
Yes. Please stand, hand over your heart. And ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
All right. So welcome everyone to the Weisburn Unified School District Board meeting. My apologies today due to the change of meeting time. I am very far away with questionable reception, so I'm only going to stay for a few minutes. My disappointment that I'm not there with you all today, but it's very special to us as we elect a new board members today, leadership roles. And first, we're going to start by doing the oath for our two re-elected members, Ms. Joanne Canetta and Dr. Neil Goldman. So I'd like to, Blake, did you want to say anything before we do that?
I would, if I could, I would like to, actually, you know what, Mr. Mora, I will say it after. How about that? I would go ahead. I think we actually, I'm looking, we were from the public first. I'm wondering, just in the interest of following the agenda, sorry to disrupt the flow, but if we could just start with from the public, just because there's people logged on.
Absolutely.
And then jump into the oath.
Wendy, will you go ahead and do from the public,
Yes.
please?
We have 6 comments this evening. We have 3 people who would like to read their comments. And I do have one person, Mr. Paredes will translate for me on another one. So my first person is Kelly Schumacher. If we could have her brought into the meeting, please. Thank you. Go ahead, Kelly.
Good evening. I am Kelly Shoemaker, grateful Teddy kindergarten teacher at Cabrillo School and proud mom of 2 sons, a 7th grader at Dana and a 10th grader at Da Vinci Science. I love and admire all of our teachers and staff, students and families who are working so hard to stay engaged and keep learning during these challenging, depressing times. We know that distance learning is not ideal. We miss being together on campus. We worry for our children's development. Word that our K-2 waiver was approved gave us hope that we might be able to return to some sense of normalcy, but times are anything but normal. COVID-19 is now the leading cause of death in America. The graphs that report data for testing positivity, hospitalizations, and deaths all have curves which trend upward at mind-numbing rates. An average of 49 people died in Los Angeles County each day in December. It is estimated that 1 in 140 people in Los Angeles County has COVID, most without any symptoms. Our county is under one of the strictest lockdowns in the nation. If we reopen schools now, we will undoubtedly welcome the virus onto our campuses and contribute to the spread. We need to stay strong and not engage in any activity that endangers the health of the people we love. Tonight, I am asking you, our district leaders, to commit Weisburn to full distance learning for all students, preschool through 8th grade, and halt our plans to open daycare until at least after April 9th. We can continue to make plans and preparations. We must stop worrying about what other districts are doing, what the state may or may not command us to do. Look at the data and make fact-based decisions that help stop the spread of this devastating disease. We need to give our new president time to implement national safety protocols, orchestrate distribution of the vaccine, provide economic support to those who are suffering, and provide schools with adequate funding for PPE, staffing, and testing programs. Then we need to give these remedies time to take effect. Please stop this will we or won't we roller coaster ride that is putting so much stress on everyone. We need to remember that our children are resilient. To quote a Twitter post, our kids are not falling behind. They are surviving a pandemic. Let us make choices that will help stop the spread of COVID during this horrifying surge so that when it is safe to return in person, we can be proud that we did everything in our power to help all of our stakeholders emerge from this pandemic healthy and ready to learn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. The next speaker we have is Octavio Gutierrez. If we could transfer him over, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Octavio Gutierrez. I am an English language development teacher at Juan Cabrillo Elementary School. Tonight, I am representing several EOD families and the Cabrillo's EOD team. While I have urged them to speak sorry about that. Oops. Zoom is acting a little weird. I am so sorry. While I have urged them to speak with you themselves, many have felt that if a teacher spoke about their concerns on their behalf, their voices would be heard. Again, I am speaking to you this evening at the request of multiple families who are participating in our award-winning enrichment ELD program that I work with and have asked me to represent them and share their thoughts regarding the reopening of our schools in January to small cohorts of ELD students and kindergarten to second grade students. They feel there are lots of concerns to be addressed before taking further steps going forward. One concern is that there are many people in the community who are currently infected and are not forthcoming about their situation for various reasons. Families are very scared that their children might contract the virus at school and bring it to their homes with them. They have seen this play out with family, some of their friends and acquaintances who live in other states. Many people are not taking COVID seriously, and they might send their asymptomatic or sick children to school. Several families have already informed the district that they are not interested in returning to school and prefer to continue remote learning until the virus is under control. A parent wanted to remind the board and district personnel. Every one of those numbers represents a person. It might be someone's grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a brother, a sister, a cousin, coworker, friend, mother, father, or even a child. While people like to remind us that most people survive the virus, if one person who dies was someone in our community, we would all be it would be devastating to the rest of us. These families would like to ask you, why do you rush the reopening of our schools? Does it have to do with funding? Many parents feel uninformed and rarely attend district meetings because all of the information that is provided is in English only. Grace Hausbecker, who started this particular program model, along with a colleague in the year 2009, asked on the behalf of the EOD families that all important information, newsletters, flyers be translated. Yet the majority of the information that goes out to parents is still only in English. I have also mentioned this at various meetings. In summary, the families are asking to continue distance learning until it is safe, and the number of infected individuals in our community is minimal. Are also pleading to share this information in Spanish. I urge the board and our district personnel to please take these comments for the district stakeholders into consideration while decisions about returning to our school in person are made. Historically, the Weisburn School Board, Superintendent, District Office, and administration have been very supportive of our English language learning community, especially when we achieved the California Gold Ribbon Award, which specifically highlighted our program. You stood side by side with us when we received the prestigious Gold Ribbon Award, and together we celebrated that accomplishment. I also ask you to be with us in these difficult times. Thank you for for giving me the opportunity to share our comments and concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will have Mr. Paredes read a Spanish comment.
Good evening. My name is Albert Paredes. I am reading a comment on behalf of a parent, Giovanna Muro Garcia. I will be reading it as it is written in Spanish, and then I'll be translating it for the board. Muy buenas tardes. Miren, yo soy la madre de los estudiantes, de dos estudiantes en este distrito. Yo tengo muchos años trabajando con los maestros de la escuela Cabrillo y de la calle 138. Me encanta el distrito y lo que hacen por nuestros hijos. Con esto en mente, me gustaría compartir algunos puntos que me gustaría que tomaran en cuenta. Primero, no entiendo por qué están insistiendo para que uno de mis hijos regrese a la escuela. Yo ya les he dicho que no estoy interesada en que regrese por el momento. De hecho, el director de la escuela 138 me llamó personalmente y me dijo que al regresar sería en un grupo pequeño con pocos niños. No entiendo cómo están permitiendo estudiantes en los planteles escolares en este momento en el que los números de casos están duplicándose rápidamente. Yo tengo un hermano que es doctor y me da mucha lástima al mirarlo por videollamada y mirar que está súper cansado por tantas horas que está trabajando, cuidando y atendiendo a sus pacientes enfermos. Miren, yo no quiero darles más trabajo de lo necesario a las cansadas enfermeras y doctores. Hay que ser conscientes y prevenir más enfermos y muertes. Como nosotros decimos, es mejor prevenir que lamentar. Les sugiero que pausen el regreso a la escuela por esta y otras razones. Quiero terminar mencionando que toda la información que me llega del distrito es en inglés. Por esa razón, no entiendo todo. A diferencia, en la escuela Cabrillo, siempre tienen toda la información bilingüe, en inglés y español. De aquí en adelante me gustaría mirar los informes, boletines e información de COVID-19 en español. En la junta de ILAC y DILAC mencionaron cómo pueden involucrar a más padres. Pues yo les aseguro que si mandan información bilingüe habrá más participación de los padres. Muchas gracias por su tiempo y espero que tomen mis comentarios en cuenta. Giovanna Muro Garcia. Good evening. Listen, I am the mother of 2 students in this district. I have worked with the teachers at Cabrillo and 138th Street for many years. I love the district and what they do for our children. With this in mind, I would like to share a few points that I would like you to take into account. First of all, I don't understand why you are insisting that one of my children go back to school. I have already told you that I am not interested in him returning at this time. In fact, the principal of 138th Street called me personally and told me that when he returned, he would be in a small group with a few children. I don't understand how they are allowing students on school campuses at this time when case numbers are rapidly doubling. I have a brother who is a doctor, and it makes me very sad when we talk by video call because I see that he is super tired due to the many hours that he is working, treating his sick patients. Look, I don't want to give exhausted nurses and doctors more work than necessary. We must be conscientious and prevent more sickness and deaths. As we say, it's better to be safe than sorry. I suggest that you pause the idea of returning back to school for this and other reasons. I want to end by mentioning that all the information that comes to me from the district is in English. For that reason, I don't understand everything. Unlike at Cabrillo, they always have all the information in English and Spanish. From now on, I would like to receive all reports, newsletters, and information on COVID-19 in Spanish. At the ELAC and DLAC meetings, they ask how they can involve more parents. I assure you that if you send bilingual information, there will be more parent participation. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you take my comments into consideration. Giovanna Muro Garcia.
Thank you. Okay, I have two more that I will be reading in. The first one I have is from Allison Wood. Dear members of the board, I am writing as a parent of children in the district to respectfully request that school not be reopened in January in the midst of this ongoing global pandemic. I have deep concern for the teachers, staff, and most vulnerable members of our community who will be potentially and most likely negatively affected by the school reopening. While I know this is a grievous hardship on families, the continued increase of COVID cases lets us know that strict measures that have never fully been implemented due to a failure in our national leadership, must be enacted. While anecdotal, I know several parents in different cities and states who have had in-person instruction for their children only to have school shut down and a 14-day quarantine instituted because of COVID exposure at school. It is my belief that the inconsistency that comes with that experience, as well as the perpetual anxiety from risk of exposure, would be worse for students, staff, and parents than maintaining the routine that has already been established for this school year. I know there is pressure for the school to lessen the hardship families are enduring in this crisis, but we need leadership in order to stop the spread. Please be the leaders we have lacked all along and keep our kids, teachers, and staff safe by continuing to offer online learning. I am taking this opportunity to also share with the board that we will not be sending our children back to school in January should the district decide to resume in-person learning. The next comment I have is from Maureen Martineau. I would like to congratulate Ana Montes on her wonderful career in Wiseburn. She exemplified kindness, compassion, dedication, and hard work, all while wearing a smile, and also a beautifully put together outfit. From the early days of being an instructional aide at Dana to the many days of being Director of Human Resources, Ana always retained her humility and sense of service to others. I would like to personally thank her, most notably for saving me as a brand new teacher when my gradebook was lost or stolen, and for all the years of encouragement and friendship. Happy retirement, Ana. I'm a better person for having known and worked with you. Best to you always, Maureen Martineau. And the last comment I have, if we could bring over Amanda Sass, she would like to read that herself.
Hello. Good evening, all. I currently work as an education specialist employed by the Wiseburn District to design and implement a community-based life skills program for adults 18 to 22 years of age with developmental disabilities. Before I begin, I must express my continued gratitude to Wiseburn for their ongoing support and tireless work throughout this extended time of difficulty. I appreciate the support and ways by which Wiseburn has tried to solve a myriad of problems that our schools continue to face in this unparalleled time. For that, I am very grateful. When I think about the immediate return to in-person learning that is set to occur directly after winter break, I need to express my deep concern regarding my special needs students returning for in-person learning immediately after a holiday. Numbers are presently soaring, and we have seen a large spike in the number of cases right after Thanksgiving. It feels as though there is pressure to open at what seems a pivotal moment in this battle against a global pandemic. The students I work with are more impacted. Some do not tolerate a mask and require hand-over-hand assistance, and my staff and I will have no choice but to work in very close proximity with them. There will be no social distancing. Additionally, there is the added concern of student travel and contact over the break. I know that at least one of my students will be doing extensive traveling over the vacation, flying to visit multiple states, and then ending the trip with a few days in Las Vegas. I would like to protect my class and my school site from a potential outbreak after the holiday vacation, and I have real concerns about returning to the class setting in the wake of so many families traveling and gathering together for the holidays. Please understand that though teachers are wearing PPE, there is rising anxiety in many educators. I have never experienced anxiety as profoundly as I have this term. Your teaching staff cares deeply about their students and are working tirelessly to ensure that they are given access to their education, assisting them in any way possible. But the constant uncertainty and changes enacted at both the state and county levels make the work-life balance and providing self-care an ever-moving target. I continue to be committed to figuring out this new normal as we return to in-person and hybrid learning, but I would like to request that we continue distance learning at least until mid-January and then reevaluate this ever-evolving crisis and determine when it would be safe for all to embark upon in-person and hybrid learning on site. This would minimize needlessly exposing staff and students to a virus that has proven itself elusive in those it passes over and those it attacks. If the board does not deem it safe to meet in person, but instead uses online streaming to facilitate its meetings, how can we ask our educators to return for in-person learning? My utmost respect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wendy, any others?
At this time, I do not have any others. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone who spoke today. We will follow up on everybody's comments. I do want to say something that and remind all parents that when we return to the classroom, and we don't know when that is, that will be a choice by parents whether their children will come back to the classroom. It won't be the school's choice, it'll be the parents' choice. Lo que quiero decir en español es que cuando hay decisión para comenzar a volver los niños a las escuelas, la decisión va a ser de los papás, de los padres de los niños, si los niños vuelven a la escuela o si siguen virtualmente su educación. Nada más quería decir eso a todos los papás. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. Moving on to the agenda, the administration of oath of office. It is quite an honor that I've been asked to do this for both our newly elected members, so I'm very proud of that, and please bear with me here. So this is the swearing-in ceremony. Please, Ms. Kaneda, if you could please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name, please.
I, Joanne Canetta,
Do solemnly swear that
do solemnly swear that
I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. And I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. Congratulations, Ms. Joanne Caneda. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks, Israel, very much.
It's always been a pleasure to work with you, and we look forward to another 4 years. So thank you.
I'm absolutely honored to have this opportunity to serve our community, and I am grateful to all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Dr. Goldman? Okay. Hold on, because I can't see you. 1 second. There you are. Okay. So please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I
Neil Goldman,
do solemnly swear that
do solemnly swear that
I will support and defend
I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasion.
And I will well
And I will well
and faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations, Dr. Goldman. Welcome. Speech? Short.
It's a privilege. I have more thoughts later. I'll keep it brief. Thank you, guys. It's an honor, truly.
So Dr. Goldman, I'm going to ask you to take over the meeting as I will be leaving. I want to thank the board. It's been a wonderful year. And Dr. Silvers, it's been a pleasure to work with you as president. And I know that Dr. Goldman will jump in and do us proud.
Mr. Moore, I know you're jumping off. I wanted to just say one thing before you leave, if that's okay. I know I said I would keep it short, but if you could just, could I take a minute? If that's all right. You know, I just want to just say the second Friday in the month of December generally is a reorganization meeting for the board. And so that's actually why we had to change the board meeting because our original meeting was for last Thursday, which we missed by 1 day. So apologize to the community that you may have planned for last week, and here we are today. You know, today definitely represents a day of change and a day of moving forward. The board reorganization is upon us again. But before we move forward, I really wanted to take some time to thank Mr. Mora for his service as president of the board during this last year. Mr. Mora is a true professional, a good listener, a sound decision maker, and an all-around wonderful mentor. I feel lucky to have worked with Israel this last year, to communicate regularly with him, to problem solve, and to be challenged by his very good questions, his request for consideration, his high expectations for the operations of the district. I value his perspective immensely and have enjoyed the time we spent collaborating as me as a superintendent and him as the board president this past year. Thank you, Israel, for always being a phone call away. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the encouragement. I'm appreciative for all that you have done to help move the district forward. And I don't want to forget that you did this with your presidency, during your presidency, throughout the incredible challenge of COVID and the district's response to such an unprecedented and challenging time in history. Thank you, sir. I look forward to continuing working with you, albeit in a little bit different scenario. But thank you. I really appreciate it, Israel.
Thank you, Dr. Silvers, and thank you, everyone. It's really a pleasure, and I'm not going far, so I'm still a phone call away, and I'll see everyone in January. All right.
Thank you, Iz. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Israel.
Thank you.
All right. Well, happy vacation, Mr. Mora. He joined us from afar. All right. Moving on into our agenda, we're at the information section. So from the board, Ms. Caneda, let's pick back up with you. What would you like to share?
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. I'm just going to take a minute here to, even though Israel logged off here, to thank him for the record. He's a great leader, an inspiration for all of us, and a true believer in kids and education and in equity and all goodness for our community. I want to thank him very much. I also want to say just real fast how honored I am to be reinstantiated on the board. I'm very proud to be a board member for the Weisburn Unified School District, proud to represent our community, grateful to our community, and really thankful to our staff and our teachers and our students. The very heartfelt comments that were made in the public session this evening, people may not understand that we are, as our rules, when we follow our rules, we're allowed to listen and not necessarily comment on those positions that are, that are read into the minutes here. But I want folks to understand that we truly do have the emotion and the attachment to learning and to safety that was expressed this evening. So please know that we honor and really treasure the comments that our community makes. I hope going forward in this next term of office to serve faithfully and to listen and to make decisions that are for the best for kids and the best for our community. And once again, thanks to everyone very much.
Thank you, Joanne. And congratulations again.
Thank you.
Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Neil. I also want to take the opportunity to thank Israel for his leadership in the last year. He stepped in to be president and definitely did it during a very difficult time. And again, just want to recognize his leadership during a difficult time. So thank you. I also want to take this opportunity to congratulate Neil and Joanne on their re-election. I look forward to serving with you again and serving our community in the years to come. So thank you and congratulations to both of you. I also wanted to take a minute and just comment on some of the things that obviously we've discussed at great length tonight, and we've heard public comments here as well with regards to the pandemic. As you all know, the district and Blake and the cabinet held a Weisburn safety discussion forum, if you will, for our community. I think that took place, I want to say December 7th. I may be off on the calendar. I'm sure Blake will discuss it. I think it was done very well. I want to thank Blake and the cabinet for that. I know that it probably still might not be the answers that people or in a community or people in our community did not get the answers they wanted to hear, but this is the unfortunate circumstance of this pandemic. I also want to share with you that both Roger and I were part of the LA County coronavirus update that took place on December 8th. I'm not going to get into it a little bit. I'm not going to get into it in the details because I think Blake might give an update here and Roger may speak to it. But it was an update really geared towards school districts. So it was I thought a very good update. Just a takeaway on this. Right now, school districts within LA County that have not opened are not allowed to open. So we're in the purple tier where the pandemic is surging in the wrong direction. So we are not allowed to open. And I just want to make that clear. And I also wanted to reiterate the comment that Israel made to the parents and the entire community, that parents will have a choice. They will have a choice in whether their students return to school or not. And I just want to reiterate that. I think it's important. Along those lines, what may be a little bit confusing to everyone with regards to even with our own staff, to the parents and community, is that we also have a duty to be prepared when that decision comes from whether it's a state or the county to reopen. And as a result of that, we are having these Weisburn reopening partnership meetings, as we call them, RAP. And we are trying to be prepared when students return. And so I do want to make sure that we highlight that, and we're careful in how we communicate, because I think the message is that we're preparing, but doesn't mean that we're going to reopen. And I just want to clarify that in terms of messaging. So I think that I also, as Joanne said, those were heartfelt public comments, and we take it, every single one of us here on the board take it seriously. Our number one pillar, if you look at our goal, and our number one pillar, who I give much credit to Mr. Goldman, who really took that initiative to develop the pillars, is safety. We're not compromising. I could say that we all share that in common among this board. We're not compromising that. That is our number one pillar, safety. We need to ensure safety for our staff and our students. And in this particular situation, it extends even to our community. So again, I want to make sure that we're clear with that. So I appreciate the comments from Ms. Schumacher, Mr. Gutierrez. Forgive me on the parent from Cabrillo on 138th Street. I didn't capture that name, but Miss Wood, Miss Martineau. Miss Martineau also wrote a nice email to our entire board with regards to some concerns that I think has been shared from this public comment, and also Miss Sass as well. And so what I wanted to share with you is that we were listening. We're going to be mindful. I tend to agree with Miss Schumacher with it. We're surging in a direction where I do not think that we are going to be opening up at the end of January. It just the circumstances here in the county do not look good for us, unfortunately. So I tend to agree that I don't think we're going to be prepared. One of the things that we as a board, that I'm proud that we in terms of a decision we made early on at the start of school, was that we made a decision early on that we weren't going to start back until the next semester. And I heard a comment here earlier, and I think it's important for staff, students, and the community. We're working towards getting that message, that we also need to be clear in terms of what message we're going to communicate, whether we are going to reopen and when. I think that, as we gather more information, I think you'll be hearing a message from the district with regards to that. So as we conclude the year, it's been a challenging year. It's been a difficult year. I know it's been I think somebody mentioned it. It's anxious times for sure. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank the administration, the staff, the parents, the students, the community. This has been very difficult. Many of us have had to pivot our lives, not only in a professional but in a personal manner. And so with that, I just wanted to say, we understand how difficult this is. I also like to take an opportunity to say, we sometimes let's step back and just be grateful that we have our health, that we're safe, and that we have, at the end of the day, we are able to teach our children and deliver education through Zoom, through this virtual world that we've continued to, I think, at least improve and build upon. And for that, so as we conclude the year, I just want to take a moment to say thank you for everyone, for all the hard work that you've done. And I want to just wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and a safe and healthy one. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Well said. Mr. Banuelos.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. I have a few comments as well this evening. First and foremost, I would like to thank our outgoing president, Israel Mora, for just a fantastic year in terms of his leadership. I got to say, I've always had faith and confidence in his leadership style and his ability to bring groups and people together to really communicate. Unfortunately, he's not on here, but I would, so that I can say that in person to him via Zoom or virtual, but he knows my sentiment in terms of his leadership, and I'm very grateful for the year. what a challenging year that he ended up inheriting, if you will, for the year with regards to the pandemic. So I'm very grateful for his leadership there, and all of his other service that goes happens behind the scenes when you're board president, that just has to be done to keep the district moving forward. So thank you, Israel, on that end. My next comment is I'd like to congratulate both Joanne and Neil. Congratulations on your re-election to the board. It's always been a pleasure working and serving with you on the Wiseburn Unified School District Board. I know for sure, I have no doubt you always have the best interest of our students and our community at heart. So it always makes it that much easier, that much simpler to have open dialogue to make the decisions as we move forward by serving with you on the board, because that's also never in questions in terms of why you serve on the board. So I wanted to say thank you for that. And thank you to the community as well for electing two wonderful people to serve us all really well. I'd really appreciate that as well. The other thing I'd like to discuss a little bit, this is our last meeting, I believe, for the year. So I definitely wanted to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, happy holiday season. And above all, please be safe during this time. I know it's a very challenging time. We all want to be close to family, but be safe and make your own decisions as you move forward. But I wish you a very safe holiday season. I'd like to thank our staff, our administration, and our parents. Wow, what a 2020, right? Having the pandemic and all the challenges that it has brought about. I'd like to address a little bit of some of the comments that were made earlier. As Joanne mentioned, we're not allowed to comment during the public comment period, but I won't go into the details of each, other than to share with the community that we are really looking closely to ensure should we open in January or when that time comes, that we're going to do in a very safe, in the safest manner that we can possibly open. The timing has not been decided, or even if, but I do want to assure our community that we're really looking closely at what models could be utilized, and that we're taking that very, very seriously. It's the most important decision that we'll be making here in the near future of whether or not to open. And lastly, I'd like to address one comment in particular that I think we can address pretty quickly. If not, if we can look at how to address it. There was a comment about getting communication or information to our parents and to our families with regards to in Spanish, or translating those documents. I think that certainly we can look to do that really quickly. If we don't have the internal resources, I'd like to propose we hire somebody to do that. We need to communicate in the language of our community, and that they feel comfortable receiving the information and are getting it from us, from the district, in terms of what we're planning. Because communication, I mean, we've been talking about that for a very, very long time. I think we've made strides in that communication, but if we're missing a language where our community can't read the information we're putting out, that's a challenge and something that we need to address as soon as we can. Whether it be speaking to a community volunteer to see if they can help us translate those documents, or a neighboring school district, or some staff at Cabrillo. Sounds like Cabrillo's doing some translations already. I'd like to ask Dr. Silvers if we could please look into that as soon as possible and make sure we have our documents translated as well, to ensure that communication is happening. That's really important. That's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for your comments. I'll be brief because hopefully I have an opportunity to share a few thoughts later. Very briefly, shout out and thank you to the CARE team for the work you're doing to provide for our students, our adults, and our community. For more information, please do check the Wiseburn email that was sent out from Dr. Silvers on December 6th to learn more about those services. So important right now, and thank you for doing that. I do want to wish very briefly happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, early Merry Christmas wishes, whatever you celebrate, may it be a safe and healthy and happy holiday time. I will again have more to say later, hopefully, we'll see. Let's go now to our Chief Business Official, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. Just a couple quick presentations tonight, if I could share my screen. So tonight we're going to go over the first interim report, which is due by December 15th. The purpose of this presentation is to have the board approve the 2021 first interim report as presented. Per Ed Code, school districts must report financial data twice a year, first interim by December 15th and the second interim by March 15th. Tonight, we will discuss the general overview and context of financial reporting, the assumptions and why we have assumptions. We will also compare the 45-day revised budget to the first interim, and then we'll explain the true, in quotes, operating surplus, multi-year projections and reserves, and then talk about next steps. So on the left is how school districts finance have their reporting cycles. So you can see by June 30th, we're supposed to have the July budget for the following fiscal year. In a normal year, we wouldn't have this 45-day budget revision, but anytime there's a material difference in what we adopted from July 1 and what the state has adopted, we're allowed to change that, so we did. And it was a material change this year because if you recall, the May revise, what we based our July 1 budget on, had a 10% reduction to revenues across the board. Luckily for school districts and education and colleges across the state, that 10% cut did not materialize. And so we wanted to revise our budget with the 45-day revised budget. By September 15th, we approved the unaudited actuals for the previous year. Here we are right here, first interim, and it's actual revenue and expenditures through October 31st. In a normal year, we would, by December 15th, the board would approve the annual audit. Because of COVID, it's been actually postponed or delayed until March 31st. And then, so that's gonna be March 31st, and then we'll have the second interim, the actual revenue and expenses through January 30th, bringing us a full cycle. Just wanna note that budgets are not static, they're always changing. There's many unknowns when we develop our budget and they change throughout the year, and the interim reports allow for those adjustments to be made. And even in the most carefully prepared budget, it's just a snapshot in time. So why are we here? We talked about the two reporting periods, the first interim and second interim. And we have to, the board has to certify the financial condition for the current year and the two subsequent fiscal years, which is also known as the multi-year projections. 3 certifications possible: a positive certification, meaning the district will meet its financial obligations in the current and 2 subsequent years; a qualified certification, the district may not meet its financial obligations in the current and subsequent years; and a negative certification, district will not meet its financial obligations in the current or subsequent 2 years. So based on the financial data that we're presenting, staff recommends filing a positive certification tonight. So what guides our assumptions? So basically, due to the timing of the adoption of the state budget by June 30th, and also when school district budgets need to be approved, so we have to make some assumptions, whether it be enrollment growth, whether it be, we have certain positions that haven't been filled come July 1 that are going to be filled over the summer. We have to assume some salary and benefit costs. And we also have to make projections on the revenue as well, provided by the state. And so we look at all those things. That's why we have assumptions. And we also get guidance by School Services of California, the Fiscal Crisis and Management Assistant Team, the County Office of Education. Again, we look at current revenues, expenditures to date. We look at historical trends such as enrollment, ADA, special ed costs, inflationary costs. And then we also look at local control funding formula, updated revenue projections. So the assumptions that we have for the first interim assumes a no cost of living adjustment for the local control funding formula in any year, either this year or in the 2 subsequent years. And that's a pretty conservative approach. That's what the FICMAT and school services are recommending. Just take a conservative approach. We're not sure how the economy is going to rebound. So rather than saying we're going to get a 5% increase, we just take a conservative approach and say it's just going to be flat funding. Assumes no change in enrollment. I know many districts locally are experiencing a decrease in enrollment. We've been pretty flat. I think last year we were at 2508. This year we're at 2506. And we can also mitigate that with increased permits. So, no change in enrollment for now. One thing that we have noticed in our district is the unduplicated pupil percentage has been decreasing over time. And what the UPP is, it's foster youth, it's English language learners, and it's also students that are receiving free and reduced price meals. So we've seen those go down over the last few years, and we're also projecting it's going to go down to 42.1% this year, a little bit lower in next year, 39.3%, and then 37.7% in 2022-23. We know that CalSTRS has already been set in statute. This is what the employer pays for certificated retiree benefits. So this current year, it's at 16.15%. Next year, it's going to be down to 16% as we got a little reprieve. And then in the following year, back up to 18.1. And so when we're doing our multi-year projections, we're factoring these in that we're going to have additional expenses in the out years. Same with CalPERS, not set in statute like CalSTRS. It's a board that meets annually that decides what the rates are based on investment returns. So this year it's at 20.7, next year 23.0, and then look at this in 23, 24, 26.3. So what that means is for every dollar that a classified employee earns, you're paying 26 cents on the dollar in retiree benefits. And then we're also going to take another conservative approach, assuming no additional one-time COVID federal or state revenue. Hopefully that changes. We don't know. We'll see what the new incoming administration does. But for right now, we'll take a conservative approach and say nothing in one-time revenues. So then I just wanted to briefly show you, this was our 45-day revised budget. Now here's our 2021 first interim and the variances why they changed. So LCFF revenue, again, flat funding, didn't have a change. Federal revenue, we actually got more special ed revenue. We got some medical Medi-Cal grant, and then we updated our Title I through Title III projections. Other state revenue went up by $997,000. That was to reflect some additional special ed funds as well. And 725 of this is what's called the CalSTRS on behalf. And this is the state recently, probably 2-3 years ago, it was a GASB finding that they said all school districts have to show their unfunded liability for CalSTRS. And so we're just a small portion in the entire state, but it's phantom revenue and it's phantom expenses. So of that 997, we have 725 that is for this CalSTRS on behalf liability that has to show up on your books. Other local revenue went down by $74,000. Again, didn't know we were going to be out of school for so long. So like the gym is not getting rental fees. Other groups that we rent out to our facilities, not getting those. So we revised those updated projections. Our site donations haven't been coming in like they have in previous years. So again, adjusted that and then adjusted it for updated Da Vinci rent. Certificated salaries up by $104,000. That's to reflect some extra PD day that we did at the beginning of right before school started. Some savings from attrition and some repurposing of existing staff. Class site salaries goes up by about $42,000 to reflect instructional aides, a new support systems coordinator, and as well as attrition. And then here's the employee benefits. So here's your corresponding 725. So of the 733, 725 is these phantom expenses that we have to show on our books, again, to show our CalSTRS liability. Books and supplies go down a little bit. We haven't been buying as much office supplies unless non-school lunches for like professional development days, meetings, etc. Services and other expenses goes down by $108,000. Again, just to reflect updated projections. We're actually seeing a lot less legal fees than we have in prior years. So kudos to the district staff for not having to have as many legal fees. And then we have some increases in classroom rentals, and this is the Del Air special education, or I'm sorry, Del Air preschool that we're funding out of some one-time special ed funds. So we're seeing that lease. I thought the lease was going to be paid for out of Fund 63, which is the WCDC fund, but because we're not getting any tuition, we're going to have to pay for it out of these special ed one-time revenues. And then capital outlay went up by about $140,000. That was to reflect roofing repairs that the board recently approved, some Canon copier purchases for 138th Street. So at the 45-day revised budget, we thought we'd have a surplus of to the tune of $875. We've gone down a little bit. Now I'm projecting it's closer to about $815,000 or a delta of about $61,000. But I wanted to also show you that just because we show this operating surplus of almost, $815,000, That's not our true operating surplus. So if you didn't get this one-time revenue and if you didn't have these one-time expenses, you have to really factor those out to get your true operating surplus or true operating deficit. So we're not projected to get one-time revenues. Some of this stuff was one-time in nature, professional development, 5 days before the school started, all this PPE and other things that we purchased on a one-time basis to mitigate the pandemic. So if you don't factor those in, we're looking at a small surplus of about $164,000. Here's the multi-year projections and reserve levels. These are very conservative. I wanted to point out next year we're showing a deficit of $764,000. Again, this is flat funded. We're also including in our expenditures increase in step and column, increase in the STRS and PERS rates, special ed increases, inflationary increases. If it comes down to where it looks like as we're getting closer to developing next year's budget, we're still running this deficit or projecting a deficit, we'll have some difficult conversations and see how we can bring this more in line to be a better break even. So I don't want you to be alarmed by these 2 years of deficit spending. It's really conservative in nature right now, and it will change. I mean, these are so far out in terms of time that they can be changed at any time. And then if you want to look at our reserves for economic uncertainties, we're looking at 8.3% just Fund 01 this year. If we include Fund 17, it goes up to 10%. And then if we include Fund 20, actually goes up to 19.5. And so you can see where those are in the out years. So next year, we're going to be spending more restricted money. So our unrestricted balance increases, which our reserves increase. And then in 2022-23, goes down to about 7.4 or 9.1 with Fund 17. So the next steps. So in mid-January, the governor's going to release his initial proposal for next year's budget. We're going to continue to work with Ed Services and refine the 2021-22 LCAP. We're going to bring the second interim report to the board by March 15th. Again, March 31st, we'll present the last year's annual audit. In May revise, the governor will even provide even better accurate outlook for next year. And then to end the year in June, we'll have our public hearings for the LCAP and for next year's budget as well. And we'll bring that to board approval in late June. Any questions on the first interim report?
I don't have any questions, but I wanted to make a comment. First of all, thank you, Dave. Really good presentation. Really appreciate the organization of the information in such a way that we can go through it quickly and still understand what's there. So thank you very much for that. I do have a concern a little bit as we look forward into some negatives. Rather than waiting till we see if we are in negative territory, I would really suggest that we put some plans together that we can operationalize quickly if we see that we are heading into that negative territory, that we don't sort of wait for that, but that we're ready for that. So I don't know what that looks like. Maybe it's part of the budget committee that we're reorganizing again this evening, or certainly it would involve perhaps some board involvement, maybe community involvement, certainly the district staff involvement and your leadership as we go forward to define some possibilities. But those could be some very hard decisions, and I think we should array them in some order of priority and have them ready and agreed to as much in advance as we can. Anyway, thank you.
Agreed.
Additional comment on that. Thank you, Joanna. Same comment, of course, or wanted to add that we're going to be meeting with school services mid-January to get an understanding of what the governor's budget is. I do suggest immediately after that, and not waiting until the second interim in March, that we revisit that, to Joanne's comment and point. Also, to the conversation we were having over the past few board meetings, I don't want us to forget our goal, and I would like us to review this in an upcoming policy conversation about getting Fund 01 to the 17% target. At least have a conversation if that is indeed our target, so that our reserves are in better stead. Thank you, Dave.
Agreed. Okay, now I'm going to go over the budget overview for parents. I think this is it, I hope. Wendy, can you pull it up? I don't seem to have it. Let me see. No, I don't have it, Wendy. I'm sorry.
Dave, why don't you tell us what it is while she's looking?
So the budget overview for parents, in previous years, it's a supplement to the LCAP. Because Senate Bill 98 changed the deadline this year for the overview for parents, instead of, not obviously, but we didn't have the LCAP due this year. They gave us a reprieve in this year, but they said the budget overview for parents, which is really acts as a summary, a condensed cliff notes, as you will, for the budget that we just went over. They wanted that to be adopted in conjunction with the first interim. So all this really is just a quick, brief summary, cliff notes, as I said, of the general fund. So it shows here your LCFF funds in total, 21,535,000. Of that, 1,590,000 is for the unduplicated students, the foster youth, free and reduced lunch students, and English language learners. And then the balance, which is really restricted for those students, and then the balance is unrestricted. Then it tells you in other local funds about $3 million, all other state funds just over $4 million. So again, this is just a summary of what we just went over. Scroll down to the next page, please. And then they wanted to tie it into the learning continuity plan that the board approved in September, I believe, September 14th, middle of September. And so this was a new learning continuity plan that we said, this is how we're going to spend these one-time dollars, these one-time COVID dollars, in order to come back safely and securely, and really, pay for one-time things like PPE, online instruction. And so we identified just over $1.7 million in the learning continuity plan. But then they said, of that 1.7, how much was for high needs? And it was 650,000. Now, you didn't have to spend all this money on high need students. They just wanted to know, of that money, how much are you spending on high need students? So about $650,000 we're spending on the unduplicated students. Scroll down a little bit, please, Wendy. Actually, to the 4th page. And this is just a description of that. And then it asks to go back to your 1920 LCAP and identify what you budgeted for the unduplicated students. So in 1920 LCAP, we budgeted just over $2 million to be spent on the unduplicated students. And then it said, what was your actual expenditures for those students? So we only spent $1,962,000, a difference of about $185,000. And the reason why we didn't spend all the funds was because when we're building our budget, we didn't employ, so there was things that we didn't do. We didn't employ a parent engagement liaison. We didn't, the staffing costs to administer the LPAC were less than budgeted. And then we budgeted to employ a math coach to promote CGI, and we never did that. So, $184,000 out of $2 million, we came pretty close to our budgeted goals. And so that's just explaining what we did and why we did it. And so that's the budget overview for parents for this year. I'm hoping it goes back to be adopted in conjunction with the LCAP next year.
Dave, a question for you. Since this is a presentation of the budget for parents, they don't deal with like all the terminology on a day-to-day basis, right? Is there or can there be like an attachment or some sort of a writer that just describes what those terms are, those definitions, like what is unduplicated people count, right? Things like, and then you got CASP and you got LCAP, all these different terms. I think we're going to see some parents looking at this or seeing this for the first time. I think it'd be very useful if we could have something to guide that conversation. Like I said, they don't deal with these documents on a day-to-day basis. I think it'd be very, very helpful if we could provide that. I think that'd be a great addition.
Absolutely, Roger. This was supposed to help the budget be more transparent to families, to parents. So that's what we'll definitely put a writer with some acronyms, what they mean. We're going to post this on our website. Again, if anyone is listening and has any questions, my email, feel free to call me, email me, and I'd be happy to respond with any questions that anybody has. But yeah, we'll definitely post a supplement to this on our website.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
That's all I have, Dr. Goldman.
Right. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. Well done. Dr. Silvers, Ms. Mazzarella is not with us. Do you have a report, or should we just move on?
We're gonna go ahead and pass, and we'll bring that back at the next meeting. Yeah, we had a significant issue in her life, so we're just gonna postpone that to the next meeting.
You got it. Thank you. From the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Dr. Dougal.
No update this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, Dr. Harbeck.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. I'd like to spend a little time tonight with the school board to talk about our district-wide music program that's alive and well, even in this very challenging year. You know, this program is so key to engaging our students with their creative side and also a sense of fun. And I think our 3 music teachers have just done so well this year making the transition. So I just wanted to highlight some of the things that they're doing. In our middle school, we have Toby Harwell. And Toby is working with our middle schoolers in learning to play instruments from home, excuse me, from home. And sometimes this is for the very first time that these students have even touched these instruments, so very challenging. In order to bring them into the loop, he's also offered a component where there are media projects for the students where they can use both video production and digital audio programs to expand their creative talents. Toby sent me just a clip real quick of some of the work his kids are doing, and it really is outstanding as they expand their repertoire of music. For grades 3 through 5, Mr. Dylan Locke is focusing on voice and rhythm. And as we move toward the holiday season, he is putting together a virtual winter wonderland for 2020. And this is a series of videos that student performers are submitting to him voluntarily. He's going to put that into one video that will be available to families starting on Friday, December 18th. We'll let you know about that. Finally, I'd like to welcome someone who's been very patient here. Miss Aiko Anglem is our TK through 2 music teacher, and she is here tonight to share with you a little bit about the program personally. So Aiko, you're going to go ahead and unmute yourself for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me tonight. It's such an honor. Starting last year, I've had the privilege of building the TK through 2nd grade music program at Cabrillo and Anza. And just a little bit of a background on my my beliefs and how music education should be incorporated into the children's lives. I use a teaching approach called Orff Schulwerk, which was created by composer Carl Orff. And this teaching approach has a motto that says, sing, say, dance, play. And that's what we like to do during music class. It has an emphasis on play, improvisation, movement, and also critical thinking and collaboration. So moving into distance learning, I have been trying to keep it as consistent as possible and as normal as possible so that it is familiar to the children. For instance, I have been keeping the same routines that we've been doing in the physical classroom. So in music class, I always like to invite the students in with music playing. That's also my little secret way of exposing them to different genres of music. So I found out I could do that on Zoom. So whenever they come in, they're listening to some new music. We have our routines, such as our hello song, our warm-ups, our goodbye songs. And my goal is to really make them comfortable with music making, even if it's online. I have been able to use a lot of children's literature this year. This is something that I've always been passionate about in my teaching, but it seems like with distance learning, it has really translated well for the students and it given them something very tangible. And so I have been able to incorporate literacy, that's very important for me, and storytelling. I think the storytelling aspect also helps with social emotional learning, expressing even non-verbally, things like that. As you know, singing on Zoom is impossible with the delay and the latency of everything, but we still do a lot of singing in the class. and I've taken the opportunity to work on solo singing with the students. So whoever wants to volunteer, they can unmute and they'll sing something for us, whether it's an exercise we're doing, or I'll have them sing sentences about how they're feeling or what they did over the weekend, things like that. And so that's been really fun and also a very helpful assessment tool for me. Also, I have been doing a lot of movement with my students this year, and I've been able to get the students to still collaborate and teach each other, because that's so important for me. There have been movement activities we've done where I can spotlight them on Zoom, and so they're nice and big on the screen, and all the class members, they copy their dance movements, things like that. So they've been having a lot of fun time with that, and I also love to see what the students come up with, because they're way more creative than I am. So that has been really fun. Just a couple more things. I think that the students, they're so joyful every time I see them, and it has given me so much life. And so we're helping each other, the students and I. We check in with each other. I make sure to say their names when they come into the Zoom room. I just want to acknowledge them. And it's been fun kind of staying after class a little bit, because there's always those students who want to share something with me or ask me questions. And so that's been very helpful for all of us. A silver lining with distance learning is that they're in their natural habitat and they have family around, most of them. So we've been able to explore how we make music with what we have around us. We did a whole kitchen instruments unit where they got a lot of wood instruments and metal instruments, and we created a whole percussion ensemble with what they had in their homes. And even if they didn't have anything, we would use body percussion. And so I think the students have been really learning that, you know, even though we're not in the classroom and we don't have these fancy xylophones, we can still make music, and our bodies are instruments, and we can still collaborate together. And that's been a joy to watch. The family aspect has been really wonderful. I sometimes see siblings and family members kind of participate in the background. And so that kind of inspired me to have informances this week in lieu of a big, a school holiday show. So this week I have invited parents and family members to come to our Zoom music classes, our classroom teachers, admin, and I would like to invite you wonderful board members to come if you would like to. And Informants is just an open class, and you'll get to see kind of the routines that we go to and how we make music online. And then we have a couple fun, unpolished things to perform for an audience. And I have had a couple informances already. Dr. Silvers was here for our Anza Kinder today, so that was so fun to see. But we talk about how it felt to perform, how it feels to do it in front of some new guests and audience members. And I just really want to teach them that, even though the final product is of course important in performing arts, that the process is just as important, if not more. The way we're communicating to each other and how we're collaborating. And so I hope that you'll be able to stop by. I think Wendy, you might have already sent the information to you, but we would love to see you. And then I guess just to wrap up, I want to give a huge thanks to Weisburn, the district, and WEF for giving me all the resources that's made this possible. All of our children's books, I don't know if you can see, but I have some books up there that we've already covered. I've got my puppet friends that the children love, and everything else here that's made it possible for me to teach music online. And also a big thank you to the ANZA and Cabrillo admin and staff and teachers, all of you. Thank you so much for your support. And of course, PTA and Sarah Nitsos. I can't do this without you. So basically, I want to say that I am extremely thankful to be working in this district. I've never felt more supported, and I just feel so honored to be able to work with these wonderful children. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Aiko. All right, and that concludes my report. Thank you. Thank you so much, Aiko.
I just want to say, Ms. Anglin, thank you so much for your report this evening. Your enthusiasm and your energy is very welcome. And you used a word in your presentation that I haven't heard much lately, and that's the word fun. And I think it hasn't been real prevalent in a lot of the things we've been thinking about or decisions that we've had to make. And I'm so glad that your energy is going out to our students and our families and in a spirit of fun and learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
I also want to echo thank you for your enthusiasm and the gifts you're bringing our kids. And sing, say, dance, play sounds like a mantra we all should embrace. To get so thank you very much. Appreciate what you're bringing to our kids. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and you're, I guess you're free to move on. Let's go to Dr. Silvers, our superintendent.
Thank you, Dr. Goldman. I also want to, she left. I also wanted to thank Aiko for her for time today. I would say that I'm probably still smiling from seeing the kindergartners be able to participate in the informances today. It's just been, it was amazing. And just watching, Aiko, I think, a grateful community is appreciative of your work too. And just seeing the kids perform was really, really the highlight probably of the year so far. So thank you for that honor today. And now I move on to some probably more somber facts, but we're gonna just transition here. I'm gonna share my screen, and thought I was gonna share my screen. Oops. Not that. Or that. I'm having screen sharing issues here, Wendy. Sorry. All right. Got it. Okay. So we're just going to talk here a little bit about the Wiseburn Unified School District's reopening plan, more targeted towards having a discussion here, wanting to talk about some of the sentiments that the board may be feeling at this point. Obviously we heard some information from families. I definitely want to share some of the comments that the board members have made earlier, as well as some of the comments that we heard from the public, in that these decisions are extremely difficult. What we're facing now is something that none of us have ever faced before, and certainly safety is really, really important to us, and the social emotional health and well-being of our entire community, physical well-being of our entire community is really important for us. So I want to point out just this update to our transitional kindergarten TK to 2 waiver approval. That first of all, it was approved, and so whereas we thought that there may be a bit of a hold on the approval process for waivers as we started seeing the numbers in LA County going in the wrong direction, we actually were approved at 8:45 p.m. about just over a week ago. So that was came as quite a surprise to us that had happened so quickly, but it did. And so I do want to focus on this red box though, and I think it goes along with what Nelson and Roger both shared, is that Los Angeles schools are still not allowed to open for in-person learning for general education. And this is a directive from the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. And that continues to be their direction, that schools don't open. In fact, there is a push from the California Department of Public Health that use virtual means of communicating, of meeting, of educating students, or any type of in-person services should be virtual as able, or when able. So today I want to talk about, to provide information and to answer questions regarding the TK-2 waiver that was granted to both Anza and Cabrillo Elementary Schools. And just to be clear that not only was it granted, but it was granted after review from the LA County Department of Health, which included a visit. And then, as I mentioned, I believe at a previous board meeting, that visit was without recommendation. So basically, our sites are fully within compliance. And as Dr. Ferrer has shared over and over again with district's leadership across LA County, schools have tended to be some of the most compliant organizations within LA County. So, we would look to be at the top of that list as well. So, but our current circumstances do paint a more bleak picture. And I just wanted to share that with the community. This has become a very familiar slide, right? We've sort of replaced the slide every meeting, plan to do so again. But what we've seen here, if you look to the right, is this map. Just about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were seeing purple, but we were seeing quite a bit of red and a little orange in there. And then, over the last 2 to 3 weeks, basically we've turned it purple again. It's just turned right back around. But I'm going to go and point out some of the more salient facts here. And these are the metrics that we've been looking at. Again, in this bottom box, minimum requirements to move from a purple tier to a red tier, which would grant us more flexibility, or grant LA County more flexibility to open schools, require a positivity rate below 8%, and then a cases per 100,000 residents below 7. So again, just a few weeks ago, probably a month ago, we were hovering right around 7.6, 8, right in that neighborhood, and we have exponentially increased to the point of today. As of today, the latest adjusted case rate is 42.2 cases per 100,000 residents, and our positivity rate well above that 8% now at 11.4%. So it's pretty stark change over the last 3 to 4 weeks, and what we were facing 4 weeks ago was a lot of trouble bringing this number down. So it was at 7.6 or 7.8, and it was really hard to get that number down below the 7. That was keeping us in the purple. However, our positivity rate had always been, below. Actually, we were in the orange tier, the moderate tier, in the positivity rate. We were at 3.4, and then moved up a little bit into the 4s, but for the most part stayed pretty low. Now we're starting to see those numbers spike as well. And so while we're seeing the adjusted case rate spiking, we're also seeing the positivity rate spiking. Certainly puts us in a position to have to make some tough decisions about what we do and when we start opening schools and to what extent. So just wanted to put out the information. Again, we are still in a regional stay-at-home order, one of the most significant stay-at-home orders that we've had since March. But again, so sort of as to frame this conversation, and I know Dr. Goldman will help sort of facilitate maybe the next part of it, but for the districts and schools, we're completing waivers for the application for a TK-2 waiver. We're completed these waiver applications. It was put on by the district for individual schools, which means that we had to apply for both Anza and Cabrillo. The Los Angeles County Department of Health confirmed these applications, actually did a couple reviews of them, including the visit. We had the Board of Supervisors was the group of elected officials that ended up actually granting these applications, would send them to the State Department of Health and California State Department of Health. They would review the applications, finally approve them or give the final nod, and then send them back to the LA County Department of Health to notify the school. So again, here's the date here. So yes, it was just a couple weeks ago, Thursday, December 3rd, that we were officially notified that both of our school sites were approved for this waiver. And so, at this point, a straight recommendation is difficult. And again, wanted to open the floor to Dr. Goldman and the board to discuss to discuss this topic. But Wiseburn, Unified continues to prepare a hybrid schedule for TK to 2 students. I fully agree with what Mr. Martinez shared, and that we have to be prepared. We have to be ready. There will be a point in the future, at some point in the future, that we'll be opening schools, and it may be in a hybrid fashion. So wanting to be prepared for our TK to 2 students, and even higher, to return to on-campus learning. We want to be able to provide, if feasible, at that time, the time of opening, or soon thereafter, an option for childcare for our staff members, students, so that our staff members can come back to school. So our staff members can come back and teach, and their students can be in a safe location and learn. And for those students who may be attending in-person instruction as part of the waiver. And so note that due to LA County Department of Public Health guidelines, our childcare program, at the point that it opens, would be available for a limited number of students. So it wouldn't be the large CDC program or EDP program that we are used to, because we are certainly restricted by numbers. And currently we're in the sort of structural building stage of that, to see what it looks like, and to figure out how many classrooms we can use in a hybrid model. And we have Karen Chapkani, who has stepped in the last 3 weeks to a pretty, pretty significant role of trying to help rebuild this program. So some of the areas that we're looking at is continuing to monitor LA County COVID-19 statistics and data that's coming out pretty regularly. I do continue to have weekly calls with the LA County Department of Health and other local superintendents, all 80 actually across the county. I will have another one this Thursday. We certainly want to prepare for return of TK to 2 students. My recommendation at this point would be no earlier than January 25th of 2021. Again, open to conversation with the board on that today. And plan for a full distance learning option for families who are not comfortable with a return to school. And so I really wanted to reiterate and boldface that families have a choice, that this is, should we find a time that may be suitable to open, that families would have a choice to maintain a distance learning model. And I think we would go to the board for comments or questions. Dr. Goldman, I turn it over to you. Is that good?
Thank you. Board, I'm sure you all have comments, and I'd like to frame this a little bit before we do. Before we get into our conversation and dialogue about this, which will be basically the first of 2 we have tonight, are there any questions, not so much comments, but questions for clarification for Dr. Silvers at this time?
I have a question, and maybe it's just because the information really is this confusing, but if we could go back to your cover slide, Blake, the first slide as you were leading into your discussion.
This one here.
Yes.
Oh, not that one. Sorry, Joanne.
No, not the last one, the first one.
It was the first slide. I'm sorry. All right, here we go.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
The comment in the big red box. So when that comment is, Los Angeles schools are not allowed to open for in-person learning for general education. So does that mean that even though we have these waivers, that we're not allowed to use them yet? Is that what that says?
No, that's a good question, and I appreciate the clarification there. It's that basically the directive from the County Department of Health is that general education would be done by distance learning unless you were granted a waiver. And if you were granted a waiver, you would be given a little bit of leeway to be able to open in a hybrid model just for the TK to 2 grade level. So nothing beyond 2nd grade would be allowed. Students beyond 2nd grade would not be allowed to return at all. So in terms of that, I was talking about the more general education. I could see where that was confusing.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So the waiver, so that comment is
the waiver supersedes it for TK.
The waiver supersedes it. Okay.
Right.
And only right. Okay. Okay.
And a minimal population, just for that one targeted group of the youngest learners. The argument from the Department of Health is that they're classifying all of our early learners TK to 2 as high need, as quote unquote high need students, that they're having difficulty accessing the curriculum via these virtual means. And so that's the rationale.
So
thank you.
Thank you both. The conversation I'd like us to facilitate or have with everybody is that back in, I don't know if it was April, May, or maybe even June, we had decided that the earliest we would reopen was January 26th, I believe, when the second semester began. And we had this, and although there's been conversation of pro and con either way, that's really been our date. Well, January 26th is fast approaching upon us, and now we have this waiver. So the conversation I'd like to have with everybody is your opinions, considerations, and criteria at this time for actually opening on the 26th. I know, Nelson, for example, you shared we've had a conversation regarding your experience at another district, because you and Roger, you both work at other districts in your professional lives. Nelson, do you want to start us off with your comments on your opinions, considerations, and criteria at this time as to whether or not we should reopen on the 26th?
Sure. Again, as I made in my comments previously, I thought that this board collectively we were one of the first districts to make a decision that we weren't going to reopen till January 26th or 26th, whatever that date is. And I think that was really important because it allowed families to make difficult decisions, but prepare for whether it's for daycare or just prepare professionally, right, with work or whatever means. It allowed them an opportunity to really prepare. Now, seeing the chart that Blake just shared, we're in a worse situation today than we were back March 13th. My sister-in-law happens to be a nurse that I just spoke with yesterday, and their hospital is now preparing tents for urgent care or for the ICU situation because their ICUs are overwhelmed. So they're preparing these canopies in these areas to accommodate. So our medical facilities are overwhelmed. Given that circumstance and that situation, we definitely, I do not see us starting any earlier than January 26th. And my thoughts are along the lines of what Ms. Schumacher shared this evening. And it's a discussion that many districts, as you mentioned, where Roger and I work, that with other districts on a different level, that are having this discussion, and many are starting to lean towards considering a open in the trimester. So it would be, I guess, right after spring recess. And at this point, given the circumstance and the situation, I would lean more towards considering the third trimester for many reasons. One, I think it allows families to prepare. I know it's not the answer that many want to hear, but it also allows teachers to prepare. I think it's more disruptive to start, and I don't see it right now. I don't see the county giving us the authority to start January 26th. So if for some reason March came, I think it's too late already. We're in the middle of the second trimester, so it wouldn't make sense. So at this point, I think for operation purposes and also for parents and families, I think that the third trimester would be better suited for reopening, and that's my thoughts. And along the lines that everything that everything that I think about and what it revolves around is really our first pillar: safety for our students and staff, and that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Joanne, I noticed you nodding. Did you want to chime in?
Well, I thought Ms. Schumacher had some really important sort of catchphrases this evening in her comments to the board and to the public during the public comment section. One, because something that we're all very concerned about is our students falling behind, that we have perhaps going to lose not a full year, but there's many ways of growth, many factors to how students grow in a school year. Some of them are academic, some of them are emotional. Certainly there's physical, social, all those different elements. And I think Ms. Schumacher's comment about our students are not falling behind, they're surviving a pandemic. That's a pretty telling statement. And I just, obviously safety is primo. Safety is the first concern. Safety for students, for staff, you name it, safety in general. I mean, we can't even walk down the street without moving to the other side to make sure we're not too close to our neighbors as we go down. I think another comment this evening that was important was, I think the last speaker said, you know, we're having our meetings Zoom. We're not together in a room anywhere. And why would we expect teachers and students to gather if we're not comfortable doing that ourselves? So I think statistics are pretty key. I think the information Blake showed this evening is we don't want this pandemic. We don't want to deal with it. We don't want to have to deal with it. We don't want to have our lives impacted. Well, guess what? It's not what we want. It's what's really happening that is relevant. And I think what Nelson said is true. We need people, we need our parents to be able to plan. The other thing he said that's really important and that we've talked and stressed this evening, I know Roger stressed it as well, and that is that our families will have choices. No one's going to force anyone to come back to school in the way of students. And I think it would be ludicrous to think that we would in any way force our families into any situation where they'd have to make a decision that they feel would be unsafe or inappropriate for their families. But we do want to offer choices because different families have different needs perhaps in these times. We do undoubtedly have families that have first responders in their makeup. We do have families that may want their students to be back in a moderate version of coming back to the classroom. So I think a lot of this is about choice. And yet we are caretakers. That's part of our role as a board and as staff here. We are caretakers of education, our students and our community. So choice is important. Also important is safety. And if we need to, I think it would be good if as a group, as a board, we decided what relation we want to have to the metrics that Blake talked about. Do we want to set up our own standards for what those metrics need to look like for us to decide opening school would make sense? You know, aiming for a goal. It's one thing to pick a date, but I think that date needs to be framed with metrics. And perhaps that would make sense for our community and be a way for us to understand it as well, that the date would relate to the metrics, you know, that Dr. Silvers mentioned a few minutes ago. What are the metrics that we feel are appropriate to reopen our schools?
Thank you, Joanne. Dr. Silvers, you and I had spoken, and I'd like you to chime in here that you had shared that some other school districts were looking at metrics, to Joanne's point, that maybe we don't open, or they were thinking they would not open until the rates started to turn down instead of continuing to go up. And my thought was also, is there a certain metric at which we might put, not below, not if it's above this number, we don't come back regardless. Any thoughts you have there?
Sure, good question, Dr. Goldman. I think a really good point, Joanne, as it relates to having to come up with a metric. The hard part is, you know, determining what that metric is, right? And where is that sort of balance of feeling that comfort level? I do know that not only talking to other districts, but also talking to, you know, officials at the LA County Department of Public Health, the answer is, you know, when you talk to the county office, it's pick your local educational agency is the one that's responsible to pick the metrics. They're not going to weigh in on a metric. Local districts that I've talked to, leadership at local districts, are saying similar to what I would recommend, which is as long as cases are going up, we would not entertain bringing students back. And what we're seeing right now is exponential growth, right? So at the very least, some districts are looking at not reopening at all or considering reopening until that spike actually becomes more of a downward turn. I guess that at the point that we start seeing that downward turn, should it be after January, January 4th or so, first couple weeks back from winter break, and we start seeing what the impact of that break would be on the numbers, maybe we would have a more informed decision to figure out what that threshold is. But without seeing the number going down, it's really hard to pinpoint something that wouldn't just be a random number to fall behind, as the county right now is saying under 7. We were at, give or take, 8 to 10. I think there was a comfort level across the county with school districts, at 8 or 10 per 100,000 residents. Again, we're far and above that. So, I think the first step is to start seeing the numbers go down.
Thank you, Blake. Roger, I'll give you a chance to chime in here, trying to keep this a balanced conversation, look at all perspectives. We all have received emails from parents saying, please don't reopen. We've also received emails from parents saying, please open. Want to share that. I also want to share that it's our understanding, although the data is still inconclusive, that students, especially the students that we're talking about, are not likely transmitters, or less likely transmitters, and less likely to be, more importantly, more accurately, less likely to get seriously ill. Not that I want anyone to get ill, just trying to look at this from a large perspective. Roger, do you have any thoughts on these comments or any else you want to address here?
Yes, thank you, Neil. A few things. I mean, obviously, this is a really, probably clearly an understatement, a huge challenge for all of us, of course. But, as we came off of the Thanksgiving break, we saw these numbers surge. I mean, we're still seeing it. Just such a huge concern, right? My first thought is I have another big concern in the sense of seeing the holiday season and the new year. When we come out of that, January 4th, January 5th or something, I think that would be too early to make a decision to come back on the 25th, 26th, because we really won't know with regards to reported cases, what that impact of that holiday season. And if we were to open on January 26th, we still need to give our teachers, our parents, and everybody notice to gear up for that. So it's a very tough thing to make that decision in such a short period of time. And as Nelson mentioned earlier, we absolutely have to prepare. I mean, this is due diligence on our part. We have to be ready should that be the decision, right? I do have a really big concern in terms of whether we're going to be in another situation like we find ourselves in with spikes and surging. We haven't seen any of because it's just being rolled out in terms of the vaccine. What impact, if any, is that going to have? How does that get rolled out? I think that's going to be months before we even see that really to start to kick in. So right now, my initial thoughts is that I would prefer, that we really more, at least for the next, I guess, trimester, is really double down, if you will, on our distance learning and focus our energies and thoughts in more of that continued intervention with students and analyzing if they're not achieving, and possibly having multiple parent-teacher conferences, having those dialogues. How are the kids doing? And utilizing our existing resources to communicate more with parents to help identify those that are struggling. What resources we attach to that, I don't know, but maybe it's a combination of tutoring or some sort of an early intervention. I know we have those types of programs. I genuinely don't see us returning back in this next, say 3 months or this next trimester, given all the uncertainty like I was just outlining. I would say that my recommendation is to really more double down on, at least on this trimester, and say, what can we do better for our distance learning to capture that loss of learning? And work with our teachers and our administrators to see what is that, and have more dialogue with our with our parents. How's your child doing? And make sure that we connect with each of them. I mean, I know it's a big effort, but we've never been in this situation before. I don't have an answer, but I think communication with the individual parents is probably better, you know, then because it's an educated guess, but to an unpredictable virus and how it's going to react. I find that really very difficult to gauge. So what we can control, I think, is our efforts to the parents and community to try to gauge where we're at and focus on our community. How are we doing versus monitoring what other districts are doing? Obviously, it's important. We want to know things that they're doing, right? But really, for me, more as a reference point. Not that that's going to dictate what we do, right? And I don't think any of us are saying that. I think it's important to know what they're doing, but I think I would need a better pulse of our individual community. How are our kids doing, and how do our parents feel? So those are my thoughts in terms of our next steps and efforts.
A pulse on how if they should be coming back. I'm not sure what the pulse is getting, Roger, just to really understand.
No, the pulse on their actual their engagement. And if they're learning, I mean, are they struggling with math, right? If so, how? Are they struggling with their English lesson? Are they struggling with the history assignment or that type of pulse versus, I get the sense that the parents that, how do you say, that want to come back are probably more wanting to come back because they sense their kids are struggling, right? Or they want a little bit more individualized attention, which I think by having those communications, we can try to figure out. It's not going to be a perfect system. We may not be able to reach every single one because it's also, we have a finite number of resources. However, there might be some programs we can develop. We can capture a little bit more of a net in terms of having some focus groups, some coordinated tutoring sessions with groups, and just thinking differently. And maybe it's after, and it happens after school. It doesn't have to be from, let's say, 8 to 3, right? That might come as a result of some of those conversations, things that we need to invest in that are not your standard approach.
So I think what I'm hearing you say is, instead of opening, as we are trying to contemplate, to give people the option of returning or not returning, rather provide supplementary services for those in need and fulfill the need that way.
Right. Thank you. Yes.
A question for the board. Ms. Garcia, ironically, Nelson, good for you for catching everybody's name. That was the one that was missed, that I resonated with me relative to what she was saying, because that was one of my concerns, was the ethical and legal questions of if someone gets hurt. Obviously a massive, or gets sick rather. Obviously that would be devastating. There's also legal questions if someone gets sick that I'm concerned about our liability, and I know there is still no shield to this. It's not my primary comment. You've already shared those, but any thoughts on that? The group.
I'm not sure you can ever prove where someone gets sick. So that the thought that, but I think what you can do is offer people the option to not mix in with others. So you can't prove that a person came to a classroom and that's why they may have caught this virus. But you can, eliminate that possibility, I think, or at least mitigate the possibility by having them not mixing in. I think it really just comes back to choice. I think it comes back to, we need to define what we believe to be the appropriate metrics because it's a balance between risk and opportunity. There's risk, and then there's the risk of coming back, or the risk of having societal sort of mixing in again. And there's the opportunity of, what's the benefit or the damage, depending on how you weigh that risk, because that's really what we're talking about. And I think the risk partially is emotional and partially is defined in a metric sense. The risk is less as fewer people, as fewer people are infected and fewer people are mixing in with others. So you have one end of a continuum where you have no mixing in at all. But that's not even possible. We still have to have groceries. We still have to eat dinner, breakfast, and lunch. We still have to, people have to go to work, or at least they have to be out in society in some fashion. Those are the adults. Do the students have to be out in society in some fashion? Maybe not. I think there's so many factors to consider. And I think what we're talking about here is a combination in society that, you know, may not need to mix right now. Maybe adults go out in society because we have to take care of our families and make sure that those folks who are at home are taken care of. But kids don't have to go grocery shopping. Kids don't have to go, you know, mix in with non-family members and so on. We have to decide what's the risk and what's the opportunity, and what defines what we consider to be an appropriate risk level. And I think that comes back to the metrics. And even within those metrics, and even within defining that level of risk that we feel is reasonable, that people still have a choice.
And of course, the risk, to your point, is not only the risk you've identified so well, but also learning loss, socio-emotional learning challenges, et cetera.
Of course.
A question for the board, and I obviously I need to wrap this up, to a comment and a question. One is, if we were to, I'm getting the sense that if we were to open, if the question was, would we open now? The sense I'm getting is we would not. Is that the sense that the board at this moment, given the caseload at this moment, we would not open?
No, I wouldn't say no.
I would say no.
I would say no. That's correct.
Given that, here was our plan before the meeting. I'd like your comments on this to wrap this up. And before I do, Dr. Silvers, anything else you want to add here?
Can I, I'm sorry, Blake, because I do want to hear your comments, but when you say open up, Neil, so that's a global sort of statement. And are you including the waiver level? Are you talking TK through
only
8?
talking, thank you. We're only eligible to open to TK2. So when I say open, what I meant was, and thank you for that clarification, just TK2.
Thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Silvers?
You know, I would want to talk a little bit about risk, and I'd ask Cabinet, you know, to jump into, and I think I'd like to, you know, to hear what they may have to say, but you bring up a good point, you know, Dr. Goldman, is in terms of risk and what is our risk, and the fact that we're not shielded from that risk. However, what I will say, and I want to thank, you know, a team of a lot of people, you know, custodians and our administrators and so forth, for putting our campuses in a position that mitigates the risk to some degree. And so, you know, what we are hearing, you know, although we're not shielded completely, is that, you know, along the lines of what Joanne said, we won't be able to determine where somebody got sick, but, you know, theoretically. But what we would know is if someone were sick and we were following our protocols. So if somebody were to have, you know, become infected with the virus, and then they came back and saw our protocols and realized, yeah, we checked all those boxes, and we adhered to all the protocols, it would put us in a lot better place, you know, moving forward. And so, you know, at this point, when we start looking at some of the data and we start looking at metrics, you know, the TK2 waiver was an exception, you know, sort of to the rule. And it was an exception at a point when the numbers were at 7.6 to call it 8 to 10. So, you know, I would suggest at this point, you know, and maybe revisit this when we come back at the new year, to make that recommendation to say, you know, if we see numbers that are getting closer to that 10, you know, and get down to those numbers when the waiver was actually made available for districts, that we revisit the conversation. And so I think that 10 mark, which I still think may be a little high, you know, considering the circumstances, but you know, maybe the board would have an appetite to have that conversation again as we start seeing those numbers get closer to 10. I think I would have that would be something that maybe we would entertain. I don't know, just my thoughts.
Any cabinet members, your perspectives?
Just to echo Blake's sentiments in terms of the exception piece and then also the data piece, is that I will say when the county was also looking at even deploying the waivers, they had given us a 2-week timeline. So what they meant by that was you would have to be at this metric for 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks later you can open up. And so I think Nelson mentioned this piece about planning, and I think it's important that folks know that once we hit that metric doesn't mean we're going to open up the next day, right? If we get direction from the board that uses a similar sort of timeline, then we can continue planning, and parents can then also know, and teachers can know, that it's still a 2 to 4 week turnaround time once we meet the metric. That's the TK to 2 students would be back on campus. And so I think that would be helpful in planning purposes, as well as making a safe decision when it comes to metrics.
So you're suggesting, as I understand you, Nisha, that although that metric was required for whether or not we could open for all students, you're suggesting apply that to the TK2 waiver as a metric model to make our decision.
Yeah, and we can choose that number. I think Blake mentioned the 10% case rate. Great. So if that's that, then we keep monitoring it for 2 weeks to get to that 10%.
And right now we're at is it 17%, Blake? What relative to the comparison? Where are we to the 10% to where are we today again?
So we are at, we were actually at 42. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes here. We are at 42.2 adjusted case rate and an 11.4% positivity rate. So if we played around with those numbers a little bit, you know, we'd want to be somewhere below 5% as a, you know, positivity rate, you know, when you're looking at, you know, positivity rates, and then we'd want to be closer probably to that 10. And again, these are numbers that are just closer to when that waiver was made available to schools, was when we were around that 7.6, you know, to 8 to 9, that kind of per 100,000 residents. So I was suggesting that we use that as a guidepost right now to start hoping to see numbers turn around and get closer to when this waiver was made available. And I do actually agree with Nisha on that we do wait a 2 week period and see how the numbers go and prepare our schools. I would say though that we still continue, you know, full force in preparing and, you know, having schedules, being able to continue because what we don't want the lack of logistics or the lack of preparation to keep us from coming back to school. We want to be in a place to come back to school when it's appropriate to do so. So I would just, you know, obviously recommend that.
Thoughts from the team? Any others? So here's my thoughts. Our plan entering this conversation, when we were planning for this conversation, was we would have this conversation. We would not come to a conclusion necessarily, but we would then ask the public for public comment in a new format we're experimenting with. The public comment would be on the website, and this should be available tomorrow or the next day, where you could log onto the website, you'd see the topic of discussion and enter your comments, and we can make that happen. So I still think this is a good idea, but I have some caveats and questions. The next board meeting is January 14th. As I think about it in this conversation, I do not know how realistic it is to make a decision on January 14th, whether or not we're going to open on January 26th. That doesn't seem very fair to parents. It's just and teachers. Point of observation, we are basically exactly now on the calendar from Thanksgiving, where January 26th will be from Christmas and the New Year. It's unfathomable to me that we will be in a significantly better place with the numbers 3 weeks from Christmas and New Year's, given where we are now. So 2 questions, and I hesitate to do this, but I don't know another option that comes to mind. One, we either decide to delay, as Nelson has suggested. I agree. My feeling is mid-semester doesn't make any sense. Or we have another board meeting this year, giving time for public comment, more information, and make that decision before the end of the year, giving parents more time. Comments, thoughts on that? Of course, your views are welcome.
Well, I think we need to decide what metrics we feel are 2 things. I think we need to agree on what metrics we believe need to be reached or accommodated. And I think Nisha's comments about not just reaching a metric, but holding it steady or better for a period of time is reasonable. And I think I think, you know, you make a good point that, I mean, given the time of year where we are right now, it's hard to believe that metrics are going to improve radically in any month. I just don't see how it's possible. So given that, I feel, I also agree. I want to make, sorry, I wasn't ready for the conclusion yet. I also feel that we do need to keep planning. I think that planning and having discussion, ongoing discussion, and reaching a, even if it's premature in terms of a date or not, we're not quite ready to set a date, to be ready when we are, when we do feel like the metrics are appropriate is totally the right thing. So I don't know. I don't see, if we meet in another week, it's hard to imagine that the metrics will have reached anything reasonable. Anyway, that's my opinion.
Roger Nelson, quickly, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm of a similar opinion. I don't think within a week, meeting in another week, that will be drastically different. Yeah, so I think that this decision would have to be made next year. And to your analogy, I thought it was very well taken. That's kind of where I'm at as well, making that reference from Thanksgiving and the new holiday season. I think it's we have to wait a certain amount of buffer time after that to see what the impact is of the additional holiday season, and I think that puts us probably right into February, probably, to even have that discussion. So I don't see us opening in mid-semester either.
Dr. Goldman, I'm not a board member, I know, but I want to just see if I can ask, just add to this real quick, would be maybe what we do is we do open that format. I really like the idea of opening a format on our website that provides an opportunity for public comment. And as I said, we could share those, but and I think public comment comes, from our teaching staff, from our support staff, from our community members, really trying to get this varied view as to what people feel about coming back. District office staff, everybody, and really encouraging that public voice, and then we can then turn and share that voice and those comments with you. And as we come back January 4th, January 5th, we'll have more comment. We may not have, we may not be seeing trending in the way that we want to see trending with the virus, but we'll have a more breadth and depth of public comment and sort of community opinion, if you will.
I have, in addition to the public comment on our website, there was something in the public comments this evening that was a little bit concerning. And that was that some of our community members feel that certain opinions carry more weight than others. Certain of the parents felt that they needed a teacher to represent them in their comments, that it would, that we, the board or the staff, would recognize those comments as more valid than if the parents said them themselves. So I want to make sure people understand that we value all comments. There's equal weight to parents and staff and board members. Nobody here is more important than anybody else. So if there is when we do present an opportunity for people to make comments, we really want people to know that those comments are important to us. And we're not going to weight the comments because of this parent said that or this parent said that or something else. So please know that to our community out there, that your comments are important to us. If you feel like you want to make comments anonymously, I think that will be possible in this technique, Blake. I don't know. I don't think people are going to have to sign their names. However, if you would like to sign your name, we'd like to be able to see that too. And if you want us to respond separately, we need to make it a dialogue. It's better if it's a dialogue, not just one way. So first of all, make sure you know that your comments are relevant and important to us, and also that anonymity is fine, or signing your name is fine. All those things are welcome.
All right. Well, thank you very much. So I think what I'm hearing, pending any disagreement, please let me know if I've got this right. We will table a decision until the next board meeting, January 14th. It is currently our plan at this moment to open January 26th to TK to 2, with always the option of students and families coming or not coming. I believe we're also going to send a survey after the first of the year with more information is the target idea. We will put up a public forum, public comment section on our website. Dr. Silvers, we would ask, of course, that you send an email out so not just the few people watching tonight are hearing this. And we will decide, we'll also ask based on the comments about metrics, we'll also ask the cabinet to work on metric suggestions. So when we come back, we have a framework.
Neil, I had one suggestion for consideration to this board. First of all, I agree with all the statements that have been made. My only recommendation for consideration is I think that the 14th is too late. I think it's unfair for administration, for the teachers and the students on what are we going to do. So my recommendation is if we can maybe, I certainly think that we should, as Blake mentioned, hear from the public, and I'd definitely like to see those comments. My suggestion is if this board would consider possibly a special board meeting early in June, because I think next week is already, too late because it's the holidays, right? But maybe early in June.
January.
January. I'm sorry. Where am I at?
No meeting in June, no problem.
Yeah, June's okay, but tell me not what you mean.
Yeah, a little earlier in January. I would just think it will give the parents, the staff, the administration, and the community a little bit more time.
I'm comfortable with that.
So we could work with staff to maybe send some dates around and try and get something that first couple of days of upon return.
Yeah.
Right.
January 7th is the first Thursday after the new year.
My understanding, this would just be a one-item agenda basically at this point.
Right.
Okay. Sure.
And we'd have the full complement of the board at that time too.
Right.
All right. Dr. Silvers, your report is still going, my friend.
All right, my report's still going. Okay.
This must be the longest superintendent report we've ever had. So congratulations.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I feel sort of silly bringing up this next presentation, but I'm going to do it anyway, I think, and just kind of with the caveat that we're talking a little bit about school renaming and the discussion on school renaming, and definitely the board could certainly push back, and I'd be willing to listen if you want to push back. But I did make a commitment to the board. I made a commitment to the community that we would revisit this in December, and I want to, I want to meet deadlines. I want to make sure that our deadlines are honored and that my word is honored to the best of our ability. So. I do have a bit of a proposal in terms of name change. And again, I'm going to pull that up here.
As he's doing that, perhaps in the interest of time, I'd ask the board to hold your questions until the end of the presentation, just so he can do it efficiently. Thank you.
Screen sharing stopped. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we've been talking about 138th Street School, and again, the caveat being that my personal opinion right now is that we have sort of bigger issues to combat right now, other than renaming of a school. I mean, I do think that the school name is very, very important to the community and very important to the student body, but just in terms of obviously these conversations are really heavy today. Maybe this is something that we push, but again, going to just bring it up and show a little bit of information here. So really just to get to the point is that we want to select the school name that represents the Wiseburn Unified School District and 138th Street School specifically, and the inclusive, welcoming nature of the school community that our students, staff, and community embody every day. Again, our pillars are sort of at the base here of our purpose. And when we look at considerations for renaming, we look at names of people who have made a positive impact. As per our board policy, they can be living or non-living. They can involve streets, neighborhoods, i.e. Holly Glen or 138th Street. Core values of the district. I've seen schools locally and across the country with names such as integrity or hope or loyalty, things of that nature for school names. And other considerations for renaming is, and this is just doing justice to some comments from board members previously, is that maybe we look at overall naming of our school sites, that our other schools also have names of explorers and maybe conquistadors that ought to be looked at. And so that's an additional consideration. And just a couple pros and cons here is that when you talk about people, the pro is people are very inspirational. They set an example, a tone, a way for a community, a student body to see a role model and to have a reach to see success in someone. The con is obviously understandings of historic or famous individuals could change, is that people change and the perspective on people change. It can certainly cause political issues, as we saw with our current circumstance and why we changed the name. And then when we look at neighborhoods or streets, they honor community and history, and they do create a bond in a community, memorializes these special places near and around schools. The con is that they could be perceived as dry. And then it could cause competition among neighborhoods or schools. So why is my neighborhood not mentioned, or things of that nature too. And then values. It's a clear focus on values like diversity and inclusion, but it's really difficult to work values into a name, and it's a small percentage of schools that actually have that, so it is of little precedent. But I figured I'd put that as one of the potential options. And so options for renaming our schools would be now individually renaming 138th Street only. Doing a sequential look at all of our schools, renaming 138th Street School first, and then taking a look at our other schools, conversing with the community at our other schools and looking at them. Again, the third option would be a simultaneous rename of all schools at once. That would be parallel and overlapping process with the entire community. Again, the pros and cons, when you're doing individual or sequential, there's a special focus on each school and community, which I think is very important. You learn from the process. It does take longer, and we've estimated about 7 weeks or 2 months that it would take per school. When you deal with simultaneous changes, you're more efficient. You decide and announce all names together. It's a little bit more of a community effort, a larger community effort. And you also have cross-pollination of ideas, but it does take more coordination. It does take a little bit more time, and it does have definitely a greater impact on the community itself. So, you're talking about changing, multiple school names. It is a sensitive topic. And so we've, again, looking at our timeline, we believe our point now, or our idea now, is to start January 11th with the renaming of 138th Street School. We figured that would last through March 1. Looking at the calendar, actually it would last through March 15th. March 15th would be the board meeting that we would be able to bring some names forward just to rename 138th Street School. And that would include the CAC, and I'm sorry, it's a Citizens Advisory Committee that's part of a policy of renaming the school. So we would have a meeting, we would discuss the process, and again, have to go through a survey analysis, a second community Citizens Advisory Committee, and then we'd have a board meeting where we'd review recommendations. We'd have ballot and voting on lists. We'd create a short list. That short list would then lead to number 7, which would bring that short list to the board for review. I would say, and talking to Dr. Goldman, I think, and Dr. Goldman, correct me if I'm wrong if it wasn't you, but I do think a piece here may be missing, and it's almost an asterisk before number 1, which would be maybe at the next meeting, instead of hitting January 11th, maybe our January 14th meeting, we come back with the board policy on naming, and we can provide that board policy to the board. We can really dive into that board policy and see if it's small, it's a short document. I could provide it early, enough for you all to review it. And maybe we just take a look at it and review that before we get into this number 1, which would be the activity of week 1. So, as that caught my mind, and in my discussion with Dr. Goldman, maybe at this point, I think maybe that would be my recommendation. Any thoughts, perspectives, questions on any of it, I guess, right?
I have one thought, and it's really towards the schedule, Blake.
Sure.
Obviously, from our previous discussion, I think the district is going to have a lot on their plate in terms of reopening considerations. And I would I'm concerned about the community input phase. I think that could be a little bit more challenging given this pandemic. We may have to hold more meetings. So one thought is possibly let's give ourselves more time. I think, what is the goal? Is the goal to try to have a name by the next school year? And if that's the case, then maybe we have to take a little bit more time and have the opportunity also to engage our community, our stakeholders for more input, just given the challenges I think that we're going to be facing. That's my only
I think you're on mute, Neil. Neil, I think Dr. Goldman, sorry.
There we go. Agreeing with Nelson that I think our target should be opening 2021-22, and we back up from there, give ourselves the time to get through this year. That would be my thought on timing. Other comments on timing, board?
Not on timing, but I do have some comments just on the overall, I guess, process. Some clarifications or suggestions to discuss.
Please.
Okay. So one of the things, in terms of like which schools, I do think we're at an inflection point here in our history as well, where we could look at renaming multiple schools simultaneously would be my preference. And that doesn't mean that all of the schools, in my view, I would also need a little bit more time to study which ones of those, but for sure, in my point of view, the conquistadors, to me, are not worthy of having a namesake of a school named after them. So I would be very open to changing that simultaneous. If we already have agreement on 138th Street, I would like to, like Nelson mentioned, put together somewhat of that schedule, Dr. Silvers, that you have. We need to give you some more time. Certainly can understand that. And then in terms of processes and board, I guess the board policy, I would definitely like to review that. But my recommendation would be to review the naming simultaneously, because I think a lot of the things are repetitive, and a lot of the names that are going to come up, maybe 138th isn't the name for that gets selected, but it could be selected for other school sites. And if we're doing it all at the same time, I think it's more of a streamlined process because of that. We're already going to be doing it versus having to do it, say, 3 or 4 individualized times. I think that's even a greater burden for the community. So those are my initial thoughts on the process.
I'm hearing delay, but desire to open by next year. Consider all names simultaneously, and I think that's what I heard. Joanne, comments?
No, I think you summed it up well, Neil. I'm hard pressed to find renaming schools a priority right now. I mean, I don't think so. But I do believe it is something. We do have some open items here that need to be considered, and I like the idea of perhaps aiming for the start of, sort of fall of 21. And I think we need to revisit more than the 138th Street School, because we do have potential issues with some of the conquistadores names that we have, which is unfortunate, but perspectives on people and events changes. The events are the same, but the perspective is different. And so I like the idea of doing them all, reviewing them all simultaneously, deciding which ones we think merit the renaming process, and then going ahead to do them all at the same time.
And I have one more thought to add, and that is on the name itself. I would love our schools. I think we all want our schools to be the most welcoming, inviting places they can be, where all are welcome, all are honored. And my concern is, we heard a lot of suggestions from great people with great histories, and without exception, every person with great history and great people had naysayers on the other side that were offended or really disagreed. I would advise, my perspective is, we stay away from historical figures or current living figures, go with either the neighborhood, the street, the value, something that is inclusive and welcoming and no one takes exception with.
I would love that. I can't wait to see that happen. We have no one taking exception with the
All right.
decisions that we make. I'm in, Neil. Let's do it.
I think it's going to be
You know
a
what.
process.
But I was
I can't
saying,
wait.
any other comments? I know it's getting late.
Are we still on the superintendent's report?
We actually moved on, so we did pretty well.
I have 4 more items. No, I'm teasing. Oh, that's it for me.
Blake,
Dr.
Dr. Silvers, do you have a sense of what you need from that?
I do. Thank you all. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, let's move on and see if we can get to our agenda at hand. We're going to move to item 6.1, the minutes. Approve or sign the approve the regular minutes from November 12th, 2020. Can I have a
motion?
Thank you, Joanne.
Second.
Thank you, Nelson. Wendy, please take a vote.
Mr. Banuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Canetta?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Ayes have it. 7.1, let's go to general and the item 7 dot, et cetera. 7.1, approve the schedule for the 2021 board meetings.
You have a motion to approve?
Thank you.
You have a second?
Thank you. Dr. Silvers, any comments here?
No, other than we changed, we initially had scheduled or brought to the board one meeting in January and then went with our current 14th and so 2. So the second Tuesday, I'm sorry, the second and 4th Thursday of the month, the 14th and the 20th. That's it.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Wendy, please.
Mr. Banuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Canetta?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
We now have the reorganizational items from 7.2 to 7.12. Dr. Silvers, can we take these together?
I unfortunately think we have to take them separately.
I was going to say, I don't think so.
All right, 7.2 it is. 7.2, adopt organizational item, establish membership and elect officers.
Can you go to the item, Wendy, to the 7.2? Can you click to the next?
They have an order.
Yeah. So I would like to take this opportunity to nominate my colleague, Mr. Neil Goldman, as president.
I would like to second that.
Thank you, Roger. We then need to move. Thank you. Vice President, any other nominees?
Are you willing to serve, Neil?
Yes, with pleasure. Yeah.
Okay,
You should
good.
accept. I think you should accept first.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Do we vote on that first?
I think we do them all together and then take a vote.
Okay. Okay.
Vice President Clerk, can we have a nominee?
I would like to make a nomination for Nelson Martinez to serve as the Vice President and Clerk of the Board.
I second that.
Thank you, Roger and Joanne.
Are you willing, Nelson?
I am.
Okay, good.
All right.
That is the items on this list. Any questions? Further? No? Wendy?
Mr.
Excuse
Banuelos?
me. There's something here that's a little confusing because I thought we did this for a 2-year term and this says elect officers for the coming year. So is this for a 2-year term or are we just doing this for 1 year?
My understanding, it was 2 years. Nelson, is that your understanding?
My understanding, it was 2 years for me, but 1 year for you.
Works for me, man.
Just kidding. I understand it. It should be 2 years. Joanne is correct.
So we probably need to amend that on this item and perhaps the ones that follow.
Yeah.
Okay.
With the stipulation, Mr.
Thank you.
Banuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Canetta?
Yes, aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Thank you.
You're gonna have to put up with me for 2 more years, guys. All right. I have some comments I'd like to make, but let's take the rest of this section. 7.3, adopt resolution, certification of signatures. Oh, this was more than just organizational individual.
Yeah.
Certification of signatures. This is basically saying that these 4 cabinet members who are with us tonight will have authority to sign on behalf of the district.
I'd like to motion this and then I have a comment.
Second.
I'd like to second.
Thank you. Joanne?
Yes, Blake and I spent considerable time talking about this resolution today. And Neil, you and I talked about this as well, that one of the things in industry as well as organizations in general, and that is that signature authority is really important and needs to be clearly specified in relation to a delegation of authority. This is pretty basic management definition of how organizations run. So I'm happy, I'm willing to pass this resolution this evening with the idea that Dr. Silvers is going to provide by our next board meeting a listing of how this signature authority is actually distributed amongst these 4 individuals. So in conjunction with an org chart for the district, Dr. Silvers is going to present a table that a little more clearly defines who in this list of signatories is responsible for what kind of contract. Because what we're doing here is talking about obligating the district funds to either a contract or an understanding with a third party. And that would be anything from a software license to fixing the roofs, obligating capital improvements to the district, or obligating the district to other sorts of contracts. That's really important, especially in these times of fiscal strain, where we have cash flow issues because the state, whereas they are approving funding, are not actually sending us the money for several months of delay where we have to borrow against that promise. So we really have to manage our cash. We really have to manage our commitments. And I think it's really important for our staff to understand the expectations that we as a board have for them for obligating the district a financial commitment. And so I've asked Dr. Silvers to present what would be considered a delegation of authority in relation to these signatures, so that the board understands as we delegate, and these great folks, as they understand by accepting this responsibility, that we know exactly what the expectations are and how these are to be fulfilled.
So with that stipulation that you'll basically create a delegation of authority in our next meeting.
Right.
Can we take this to a vote? Joanne, you comfortable with that?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Dr. Goldman, just to clarify though, not the special board, it would be the 14th.
We're talking
14th. The special board meeting will be a single.
For next week, Dr.
Fair
Silvers.
Yes, thank you for that clarification.
All right.
Randy, please.
Mr. Benuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Caneda,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez.
Aye.
Now, the rest of these items, I took another look, are all the committees and associations. Can we not take all these together? Still can't? Everyone has to be individual. All right, we'll do it. Sorry, guys, I'm trying. 7.4, adopt the organizational item representative to elect members to the County Committee on School District Organization.
I would love to nominate Mr. Neil Goldman for this one.
I need a motion first.
You have a motion.
And a nomination.
And a nomination as well.
I'll second.
All right.
I'd like to discuss that one if I may.
Yeah, I think, please do, Roger.
On this one, I have been really involved with the county committee for the choice blocks. Is this the same county committee that we're discussing on district reorganization?
We had some
Yes.
individually. I think that is my understanding too. And it's my understanding, and I would instead nominate Roger for this position.
Well, I would definitely like to take back my motion and motion for Roger if that's the case, because if you notice, the answer was well specified for me in the public content there where it said newly elected president. So, so I would like to, obviously that public content probably needs to get revised. But I would like to take back my motion and make a motion for Roger to serve on this county committee.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, in our executive content notes, it's suggesting Roger. So Roger was the name on the list. I don't know how this got copied and pasted in the public comment. I'm sorry.
So I will second that. And Wendy, let's take that to a vote.
Thank you.
Mr. Banuelos,
Aye. Thank you.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Caneda,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez.
Aye.
Moving to item 7.5, adopt organizational item representative to Los Angeles County School Trustees Association. Can I have a motion and a nominee?
I would like to make a motion for Roger Banuelos to serve on this. He's been serving us in this role for the last number of years, and I know he's very involved with this organization.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to second that, and I'd really like to thank you, Roger, for representing us for these two different committees, because they're really important, and you've done a really good job for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd love to the opportunity to continue to serve on those committees. Thank you.
Fantastic. Wendy, please.
Mr. Banuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Caneda,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez.
Aye.
Item 7.6, representative to the Wiseburn Education Foundation. A motion, please.
Roger, you're on a roll. Do you want me to continue?
I think I have enough, but I sure appreciate the thought.
I would
For the item.
like to make a nomination here for Neil Goldman. Neil Goldman has been obviously he's a founding one of the founding members, I think, or the founder of the Wiseburn Ed Foundation, and he's been obviously very involved, and would love to nominate him for this role.
Thank you, Nelson.
Yeah,
I would like to second that.
Wendy?
Yes. Mr. Banuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Caneda,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez.
Aye.
And thank you, Neil, for serving in this capacity.
It is a privilege.
You've done the liaison, and that organization is so important.
Indeed. It was mentioned tonight, so thank you for the good work. 7.7, Budget Committee Representative. A motion, please.
Well, I think we get to select two representatives here, so I would like to make a motion, and this is going to be an important committee here coming in the upcoming year, considering the budget that Dave talked about and what we're going to be facing in the next years to come. So I would like to nominate Ms. Joanne Caneda and Mr. Neil Goldman for this budget committee.
And after conversation with Mr. Mora, he agreed that he would like to take that position, and I want to honor him by doing that.
Oh, then I guess I will
all right.
revisit my motion, and I would like to nominate Ms. Joanne Caneda and Mr. Israel Mora for the budget committee.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for doing that, Joanne. It is very, as Nelson mentioned, very important. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I would love to second.
Thank you, Roger. Wendy, please.
Mr. Banuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Caneda,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez.
Aye.
That's where it just as a side comment, Israel, that's where Israel and I started years ago before we were board members participating in the district, whereas parent representatives to the budget committee. So it's a pleasure to meet with Israel again in that same way.
Fantastic. And good to see you back. 7.9, appoint representative to local, no, I'm 7.8, sorry.
Right.
The Facilities Committee, two representatives.
I'd like to make a motion on that to nominate Nelson and Israel, since we have two positions for that committee.
Thank you.
Do we know if Israel's okay with that?
Yeah, he is.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, I think they've done a great job. Nelson, you and Israel together. It's been great.
Thank you.
Moved, and do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Wendy?
Mr. Banuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Caneda,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez.
Aye.
Thank you.
Adopt organizational item, appoint representative to Local Classrooms Funding Authority, LCFA. Is this the Measure CL deal?
This is, so this would be generally the president of the board Dr. Goldman.
I'm comfortable with that. Motion, please.
I'll motion.
You have a second?
I don't know if I need to nominate myself or.
No, I think, okay, I'm motioning to nominate Dr. Goldman for this role.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
All right, Wendy, please.
Mr. Benuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye. Oh, I'm sorry.
Ms. Panetta.
Names are confusing, I get it.
They're very similar.
Oh my goodness. I apologize.
Ms. Panetta,
Yes, aye.
Mr. Martinez.
Aye.
Thank you.
710, adopt organizational item, appoint representative to the local public schools funding authority. This is my understanding is also board president. I'm forgetting what this one is.
So this is with Centinela Valley. We have 2 members on this board. Could I make a suggestion that we actually have the right to appoint? One of the board members could actually delegate a seat on this. So Dr. Goldman, usually the president, I don't know if that's the delegatable seat, if that's a word, but at least the second seat, we could delegate one of our staff members to sit in as the second member. And I believe Mr. Wilson is on here. Maybe I'd like to nominate or ask, you all to maybe nominate Mr. Wilson for that position.
I would be more than happy to nominate Mr. Dave Wilson to and have him take the clerk board seat.
I'd be happy to accept.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Can I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you. Wendy?
Mr. Benuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Canetta,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez.
Aye.
Thank you, Dave. That's the JPA, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. 711, appoint representative to the Recreation and Community Activities Committee. I will move that Nelson be our representative to this committee.
I will second that.
All right, Wendy, please.
Mr. Benuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Canetta,
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
Thank you, Nelson.
Thank you, Nelson. Yeah,
Yes, thank you.
I'm excited about this in particular because we're going to really get this moving forward as it's been kind of stalled, and excited to see you leading that. Thank you. 712, appoint representatives, 2 of them, to the Weisburn Da Vinci Articulation Committee. This is a new committee, and excited to be starting this to an important relationship with DV. Can I have a motion, please?
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Neil and Joanne.
And I'd like to second that.
Joanne, thrilled to be working already on this with you.
Yeah, you bet. I'm looking forward to this too.
It's fun. We've had a good time.
Mhm.
Wendy, please.
Mr. Benuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Canetta,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez.
Aye. And thank you, Neil and Joanne. I think this is a very important committee, and I'm very excited about this committee.
Yeah, thanks. I think it is important, and I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you both for serving in this capacity. Thank you.
Well, Roger, you know wherever you speak.
I'd be happy to support in any way that I can as well.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
You have my phone number. And
We all know the strengths and skills of the board, and reading contracts, you're the master, Roger. So
Yeah, man, that's the truth.
713, MOU, Memorandum of Understanding between Weisburn Unified and the Weisburn Faculty Association regarding in-person specialized services and student support. Dr. Silvers, you may need to comment here.
Yeah, so this is a ratification because we actually brought this to the board about a month and a half ago, and then we were just waiting for the signed version and the actual ratification from WFA. So we have it, and this is the first board meeting we've had since. So this just revolves around safety protocols related to students and staff being on our sites.
And we had reviewed this in great depth. So
Do we need a motion?
we do need a motion.
I'll motion.
And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Roger. Wendy?
Benuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Aye.
Ms. Canetta,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez.
Aye.
Thank you.
Before we get to our next item, and with apologies, I did have some prepared remarks I would like to share relative to becoming president of the board. And I would like to have them on record in this meeting because this is the meeting. So if you'll bear with me, please, I want to share a couple thoughts. I want to thank the board. Thank you, Nelson. Thank you, Roger, for your nomination. Thank you for the validation. I take this role with great appreciation and great respect for our students and our families, our teachers and our staff, our administrators, and my fellow board members, all of you. I see this responsibility as one of listening and leadership, of innovation to learn from and continue to adapt to our changing world, and accountability and partnership with my fellow board members, Dr. Silvers, the cabinet, and our WFA and CSEA members. I want to thank and recognize our outgoing president, Mr. Mora, for his leadership, perspective, decades of service, continuing wisdom, and his tutelage this last year. Thank you, Israel, for your commitment, your endless contributions, and of course, your continuing service and dear friendship. I also want to thank the entire board for being such dedicated volunteers and remind everyone that these are indeed volunteer positions. A message to my fellow board members: thank you. Thank you for your generously giving of your time and being so devoted to doing the best for our community. Thank you also for your collective and individual intellect, unique perspectives, and exemplary mutual respect. We don't always agree, but we do always listen, honor, and learn from differing opinions and work collectively to make informed, hopefully wise decisions for our community. I'm truly proud to serve with you all. In the coming months, as we continue to navigate COVID-19, we will also continue to strive to live into our 5 assurance pillars: safety, student-centered, future-ready, community collaboration, and organizational strength. I'm thrilled to work with Mr. Martinez, the board, and of course, Dr. Silvers to continue to push and support our district as a whole to be the best it can be. I've already begun vetting ideas and actions to continue moving the team's good work forward. Thank you, Mr. Banuelos and all, including working with Ms. Caneda on the Weisburn-Da Vinci Articulation Committee we just discussed, to continue to build on our vital relationship with the DV board and its president, Dr. Don Brand, CEO, Dr. Matt Wonder, and the terrific and dedicated DV board and team. Looking forward to that. We will continue to buttress our practices to further enhance communications and collaboration, including asking for your feedback, as we've done tonight with this new concept of public feedback on the website. So excited to see that in action. And I will be reaching out to connect with my fellow board members, our administrators, and our WFA and CSEA leadership to get individual perspectives on the issues at hand and how collectively we can continue to build our excellent district for the future. My commitment, and I believe our collective charge, as the district mantra states, is to work to engage, empower, and elevate all in our community. I'm honored and humbled by this opportunity. So thank you all again to our community, and most especially and above all to our teachers for the vital, incredibly impactful contributions you make every day. Please everyone be and stay safe, hang in there and carry on in COVID-19, remembering that as this battle continues, even if still a ways down the track, the light at the end of the tunnel is indeed in view. Thank you for indulging me in those comments. Let's move to fiscal. Approve first interim report 8.1 as a positive certification of related budget revisions. Can I have a motion?
You have a motion.
Second, please.
I'll second.
No comments or questions. Wendy, please.
One quick comment. I just wanted, I did want to thank Dave for the excellent presentation and obviously a thorough report. So thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Agreed. Wendy.
Mr. Banuelos.
Aye.
Dr. Goldman.
Aye.
Ms. Caneda.
Aye.
Mr. Martinez.
Aye.
Thank you. 8.2, the local adopt 2021 local control funding formula budget overview for parents, the BOP. Motion, please.
BOP. I'll motion.
You have a second, Neil?
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments?
My only comment was that we, in our discussions, we did talk about adding the writer for those definition of terms. If we could do that, we're good to go.
Yes.
So let's take a vote as stipulated. Wendy, please.
Mr. Banuelos.
Aye.
Dr. Goldman.
Aye.
Ms. Caneda.
Aye.
Mr. Martinez.
Aye.
8.3, approve issuance of 2021 tax and revenue anticipation notes, trans, and adopt resolution 20/21.07. This is to ensure that we are liquid and solvent to get cash in the case of cash flow challenges. Can I have a motion, please?
You have a motion, Neil.
I'll second.
I'll second. Oh, go ahead, Roger. That's fine. Yeah.
Any questions?
I would just want to make a comment that for the community who might still be listening here, that the reason we're needing to put this trans together is to do with the timing of our state funding. It is not related to our ability to manage our funding. And I think that's I would like to make that distinction.
And Dave, is this also exacerbated by delayed payments?
Delayed payments from the state that will be effective beginning February through June and probably into next year as well. They're statewide, I believe the deferrals are in excess of $11 billion to K through 14 education entities.
Right. So whereas the state has said they are fully funding education, the difference is they are funding it, but the cash payments are delayed. So it's up then to each individual district to make up for those delayed cash payments. And the only way to do that is through this trans process. So this is not a negative reflection on the district's ability to manage our funding. It is a comment to the timing of the funding from the state.
And my understanding that virtually every district is
correct. Correct.
Further comment? Wendy, let's take a vote, please.
Mr. Benuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Canetta?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Thank you. Item 8.4, Resolution 2021.08 regarding accounting of developer fees for fiscal year 2019-20. Motion, please.
A motion.
You have a second.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave, for putting this together. Again, comments or questions? My only comment here is that it's my understanding that we are not currently, this is not really related to this, but it's related to developer fees. We're not currently charging what we could on developer fees. There is a cost to having that done by, I think, I forget, it begins with an SCH. What's the company name?
Schrader and Associates.
Yeah, right. I would ask Dave that it might be appropriate to revisit that. What would be the cost analysis of having them do this, raising our fees, and likely projection on payback? I don't know if now's the time, but perhaps you can give us some advisory on that, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Can I have a vote then on 8.4?
Mr. Benuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Canetta?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
8.5, miscellaneous receipts and purchase orders. May I have a motion?
You have a motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. The skinniest of these reports ever. Comment, question? It's straightforward. Wendy, please.
Mr. Benuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Canetta?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Thank you. 8.6, approve one-year contract renewal for online registration of students with School Mint. Need a motion?
A motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Dave, a quick question on this. Oh, you have it in front of us. Great. Says staff does not want to enter into a multi-year contract. Very briefly, I'm sure there's a reason. Please elucidate us.
Let me take this one. Or Eileen, do you want to jump in and take it? You go for it, Eileen.
We've been working with School Mint for a number of years to bring our enrollment online. There are other products out there that might offer more options for us, and that would sync better to how our staff works. So we're investigating right now, so we don't want to go any further with a long distance contract with School Mint.
Does Power School have a partnership or partner here?
Power School is one of the groups that we are looking at.
Okay.
And we are not going back to a paper system, correct?
We are not. In fact, this year we open early, February 1st.
Okay, fantastic.
And I think, I think, was it, I'm sorry if it was Dr. Goldman that we had shared. I mean, everything has gone online and a lot of our, or sorry, maybe it was Joanne I was talking to. Everything's gone online, all of our enrollment. My hat's off really to Eileen and to Alicia and to Wendy and to the team for making that happen. That was a big lift, and you would think in 2020 it wouldn't be, but it is. I mean, it's a big shift of changing everything from paper to online, and really Margarita Cisneros is working behind the scenes, diligently to try and get this, all the paperwork online so families can just upload, their documents and just register online. This includes expediting our permit process, et cetera. So real big lift, and really excited that we're able to open earlier than we've ever opened our enrollment, at least in time I've been there. So we'll say in recent history.
Permits included. Yeah.
Great.
That's a huge accomplishment. I want to congratulate the staff on that. It's a long time in the doing also. There's a lot of involvement and a lot of thinking, and to make it so that it works and that it is comprehensible to our user community, our parents and so on. So thank you very much for doing that. It's kind of like Amazon, it looks like, oh my gosh, how did this happen? We had a pandemic and they just took advantage of it, right? And they were just ready. Well, it's no accident that Weisburn is ready. It's many years in the making. So thank you for that.
Agreed. Wendy, did we take a vote on that?
Did not.
Please
Mr.
do.
Panuelos? Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Canetta?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Thank you.
Moving to consent, we can take all these together if someone is so inclined.
I'd like to make a motion.
You have 3 motions and no second.
I'm seconding.
9.1 and 9.10. Who is that? Roger made the motion. We need a second.
I'll make a second then. 9.10.
All in favor? Wendy, forgive me.
Mr. Banuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Canetta?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Thank you. I would like to move to number 10 items, action items, personnel, and we would like to segment these. Let's take 10.1 to 10.3, leaving a special moment for the runs that remain. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion, 10.1 through 10.3.
Thank you, Nelson.
A second.
Thank you. Bill. Questions or comments? Wendy, do your thing.
Mr. Banuelos?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Canetta?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Thank you.
10.4 and 10.5 recognize an exceptional contributor to our district for so many years. First, let's have a motion, then we can talk about this.
I would love the motion.
Second. Thank you. So first we need to accept the resignation, but then really more importantly, more honorifically, adopt the resolution to honor Ana Montes. Dr. Silvers, you want to comment and read?
Of course, I would, and I think Ana is actually here. I think she's probably wondering. This is the latest board meeting that we've had this year, and it was at the very end. So I do want to share, first of all, that I want to congratulate Ana on her retirement after over 3 decades of serving the Weisburn Unified School District. On a more personal note, I appreciated Ana's diligence, her commitment, her guidance, and her grounded approach to decision making and to dealing with people. Ana was one of the first people to welcome me to the Weisburn School District approximately 13 years ago. And it was a pleasure working with her as a site administrator and over the last few years as superintendent. Ana is kind, she's considerate, and really has provided a historical perspective of everything Weisburn with her wealth of knowledge. And just, she knows, Ana knows. I want to thank Ana for her personality. When I needed a laugh or a smile, I could always count on that for Ana and for her just wonderful sense of humor. So Ana, thank you for all you've done. Thank you for being a part of the team. And I now want to read the resolution for Ana. Resolution honoring Ana M. Montes for 32 years of service in the Weisburn Unified School District. It's resolution number 20-21.09. Those employees who have devoted a very significant part of their work life to the Weisburn Unified School District deserve special recognition. Weisburn has changed greatly over the past 32 years, and this change has brought many challenges to all our employees. Commendations are in order for those individuals who have led this change and affected the lives of our students and staff. Whereas in rising to meet the challenges of providing for our students, Ana M. Montes has for 32 years devoted her career to supporting all district employees, both certificated and classified, with personnel needs through the Human Resources Office. And whereas Ana M. Montes was an integral part of the negotiations team, working closely with the Wiseburn Faculty Association and the California School Employees Association, who provided support, guidance, and leadership navigating decades of collaborative effort. And whereas Ana M. Montes has brought honor and prestige to Wiseburn through her work supporting 4 superintendents in the district office. And whereas Ana Montes has been aptly described by her administrators as helpful, humorous, witty, collaborative, supportive, realistic, conscientious, caring, creative, and confidential. And whereas Ana M. Montes has always been a champion of the ideal to develop and educate the whole child, academically, socially, physically, ethically, and spiritually, and to treat all children and families with sensitivity and respect. Therefore, let it be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Wiseburn Unified School District publicly commends and recognizes Ms. Ana M. Montes for her years of dedication to the children, parents, and staff members of the Wiseburn Unified School District. It's adopted hopefully this 15th day of December 2020. Not yet, I think we're waiting for the adoption now. So congratulations, Ana, it's good to see you.
Well, thank you so much and good morning to all. Thank you for taking the time to compose that lovely, lovely resolution, and my heart and thanks to the person who had to wade through the cobweb of that personnel file to find that information. So thank you. And just quickly, with so many important things going on and so many serious issues, I really appreciate the board and the district taking the time to honor me this evening. It's very much appreciated. I'd like to thank the previous superintendents that I worked under, Dr. Boutwell, Dr. Brand, Dr. Johnstone, most currently Dr. Silvers, cabinet members, Dr. Harback, Nisha, congratulations. It was a pleasure working with you even for just that little time. And of course, Dave, and we were good partners in crime, and everyone in the business office. I truly appreciate having worked with your staff. And of course, Miss Wendy and Silka, who are my little angels in so many ways. And I truly miss seeing everyone on a daily basis. And I always think of you. I miss seeing so many of you, and I'm very thankful that I had the opportunity to work for Wiseburn for 32 years. It sounds like a lifetime, but as the cliche, it does go by fast. And I would like to thank Maureen Martineau for her very kind words. I was very touched. Thank you. And to CSEA leadership, WFA leadership, it was a pleasure. And overall, it was just a pleasure being a part of Wiseburn. And last but not least, for the Board of Trustees, it's never lost upon me that you guys and ladies do not work for pay. You do it really out of just a sense of duty and pride and a dedication to the community. And I'm very thankful, and I know the community is as well. So thank you all. I'm most appreciative, and hopefully only good things will come to all of us in 2021.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you.
Ana, before you go, this is one of those times when I'm really regretting you can't be in person, because you would get 27 hugs and there's only 9. You know, when we think of Ana, when we used to be able to go into the office, always there. You are so dedicated. You were always there, and I'd come early, you're there. I'd come late, you're there. And what I'm trying to point out is not that you work so much, but you always did it with a smile. Always kind, always giving, always caring, never complaint, always a smile, tremendous dedication. And just the word lovely comes to mind. You're just so lovely. We will just always think positive things about you. We miss you. We wish you well. And on a personal note, Ana and I both live in Del Air, and we have exactly the same house construction. She preceded me in doing remodeling, and did a the best job on the planet. Thank you for giving me that goal to never reach. But because of her warmth and inviting me in, my house is better. So I will never forget you, Anna. Thank you so very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. That's my secret passion, decorating. Thank you so much.
So welcome.
You know, I have a few comments as well before we let you go, if you will. I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for being a guide, especially I remember as I transitioned when I first got appointed to the Wiseburn board. You know, you were always very, very helpful. And like as Neil says, always with a smile and that appreciation, that welcomeness coming onto the board is very much appreciated. Thank you for your 32 years. And that is also a very serious commitment. You made a comment a little while ago about serious matters, and 32 years is really serious too. So I want to say thank you. Congratulations on your dedication to Wiseburn for 32 years. Wow. That is that is a very serious commitment and investment in our community and district. So I wanted to say thank you. Thank you very much, Anna.
You're very welcome.
I also want to just take an opportunity, Anna, to thank you for your 32 years of wonderful leadership. In a lot of ways, you were a nucleus there for us, you know, always represented the district and kind of held WFA and CSA and us all together. And it's why we've enjoyed a wonderful relationship because of your leadership. So I personally want to thank you, and I extend a hug virtually. Thank you.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Anna, I'd like to make a comment too. And 32 years, you know, in some ways it's like, wow, that's a long time. And in other ways it's a snap, isn't it?
Yes.
You just, you can't imagine that the time goes by, and yet it's remarkable that it did. And I think that's a sign of your positive attitude and a sign of the family relationship that Wiseburn extends to its anybody who participates in Wiseburn. So, and part of that guide and part of that family sort of embracing came from you. So thank you so much for your participation, not just participation, but your dedication, your involvement in all things Wiseburn, as you were part of our community. You're always part of Wiseburn. I don't think you ever leave. You may not come in every day anymore, but Wiseburn is always here for you. And I know that you were always here for us. So thank you very much, and congratulations on an outstanding career, and wish you all the best as you go forward with your life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. And please thank Israel on my behalf. I'm sorry that I couldn't do that earlier.
Of course. All right. Well, be well.
Thank you.
And, take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Well, it's a nice way to end our meeting on a smile, and started with Aiko and ended with Anna. It's a nice smile of people that brings us back together. Upcoming events.
Neil, I think we need to actually we need to pass we need to actually do the item, right? We didn't
We
Oh,
got a motion.
we read it and didn't vote.
Did we? Do we have a motion?
I don't think we have anything, do we?
Thank you. Sorry, it's late. Wendy, please.
We have a motion and we
Okay.
have a second. Shall I take that for both items, 10.4
Yes,
and 10.5?
yes. The 10, 4, and 5. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Banuelos,
Aye.
Dr. Goldman,
Double I.
Ms. Caneda,
Aye.
Mr. Martinez.
Aye.
Thank you.
Why don't we go to upcoming dates and events?
Sounds like a good idea, Neil.
Cabrillo PTA, December 17th. They are doing a Tim Hannig's virtual family show, Magic, Laughter, and Fun for Families. I'm assuming that will be online. Do we know?
Virtual.
I'm thinking, yeah. I can't imagine them doing it. Yeah, it's online.
So we may want to post the link. It'd be nice if we posted the links for these things, guys, right? I mean, that way they could attend. I'm sure that's available on the Cabrillo school site.
And they send it out too, Neil, with all of their communications as well. So, but we could post them on our website too.
Winter break is December 21st, just around the corner. This is, of course, our last meeting of the year. returning through January 1st. Our next regular meeting is January 14th, followed by January 28th, and it's likely we will have a special meeting, schedules permitting, before then, to be determined. Do we need a second closed?
We do.
We do, okay.
Wait, don't we need a second open?
Correct.
We do.
Oh, I forgot the second open, right. So with
We need
that,
both.
do I have a motion to adjourn? We're ready for adjournment, correct?
A motion to adjourn all meetings.
Can I have a
Just as a side note, Neil, are we having a second open just for one item? You know, we could add that item based on unanimous consent to the current board meeting and not have to have a separate meeting. We have done that several times in the past. So that's as an option. So we can either add it now or we can just go to the open.
I'm comfortable either way if you're comfortable, Dr. Silvers, because I am not that familiar with the Brown Act requirements.
I'll defer to Roger on that. So if you want to unanimously decide, Wendy, do you have a preference?
No, we can unanimously add the item to this agenda. Just we don't have to go through the formality. Absolutely, and I can add it to this one.
And I assume you need a vote on that, Wendy.
Yes.
So can I have a motion to add this agenda item?
A motion.
I'll second.
Okay.
Joanne and Roger, thank you. Wendy?
Mr. Benmelo?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Canetta?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Let me pull it up.
So moved, great, so agreed, so adopted. This item is regarding the intent to participate in the Alliance for Schools for Cooperative Insurance Programs, basically for workers' comp. This is to save us some money by bundling, basically. Comment, who wants to share just a quick recap?
Dave, can you do that?
Sure, absolutely. So right now we currently have our general and liability insurance with ASKIP, and we have our workers' comp with a company called Keenan. And this is just notifying Keenan that we're going to be looking into taking our workers' comp and getting it through ASKIP. We're not we don't have to move forward with it, but we're just notifying them that we're potentially leaving as of June 30th.
There was a deadline. So the deadline was December 31st, and we knew we didn't have a board meeting before then. So we had to have this resolution passed. We've been working on this for a few weeks and just got the information yesterday, which is why it's a late add to the agenda. It could save upwards of $30,000 to $40,000 to the district. So
that's awesome.
Significant, yeah.
So forgive me, did we have a motion on this? Wendy says no.
No.
We had a motion to.
We had a motion for the agenda item. Sorry.
We have a motion on this item itself.
You got a motion.
Thank you, Nelson.
I'll second.
Thank you, Roger. Wendy, please.
Mr. Benmelo?
Aye.
Dr. Goldman?
Aye.
Ms. Canetta?
Aye.
Mr. Martinez?
Aye.
Roger, thank you for your point of information. Let us now adjourn the meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
You have a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Second. It is moved and seconded. This meeting is adjourned at December 17th. No, okay. But we do need another closed, evidently.
We do.
All right, you guys want to take, what time is it?
That's
10:11.
How about 10:15? You want to take 3 minutes?
They do need a short break here. So
Is 4 minutes enough, Joe?
5 minutes is enough.
Do it. 10:16. We're coming back at 10:16.
Staying on here.
Perfect.
No, we're getting off here and going back to close.
We have the closed session link.
Okay.
First one.
Is it the same link as the first one?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, anybody at home. Appreciate you staying with us.
Good night.